Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 413. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as well by my co-host Jim. I was born in an incubator, so says the sensei of the whatnot segulent and the Duke of you know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we are going to be talking about Teen Titans Earth 1, which hopefully Jim will be featured in Teen Titans Earth 1 hardcover volume 2. We actually intended on doing this and an issue of Teen Titans. We had, if you've been following on the website, we had some issues with equipment where we've actually had to record this twice. And it actually, I think the discussion benefited because of that, because you and I were able to go back with some more depth in talking about Teen Titans Earth 1 and really touch on some things that were interesting. So we did a full cover-to-cover of this mammoth volume on this episode. So it's all about Teen Titans Earth 1, and we have two great voicemails. In the voicemails, we do briefly talk a little bit about Deathstroke issue number 2. Just some reveals about some things that were in the cliffhanger of issue number 1. So you're going to want to keep that in mind. That's in the first voicemail from Brandon. So Jim and I do a little spoilery just because Brandon kind of took us off on that tangent, but it was a lot of fun having that discussion. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, it's the beginning of the month, and all of the new deals are going to be rolling in at DCBService.com. I love this time because I love seeing what bundles they're offering. I love seeing special deals. I love seeing new product that's coming out that I wasn't aware of. I like browsing through the site, seeing things not only from DC, but from various publishers, toys, statues, things like that. I can't always get everything that's on the site, but it's nice to browse through and kind of look at my budget and say, okay, here's what I've got. And how can I stay within that and get some of the cool things that I want? They are your pre-order source. They are a digital partner from Comixology and, of course, My Digital Comics. 5% of those purchases that you're already making go to your DCB service order. So if you haven't shopped there before, make sure to link your accounts and get that credit built up. It doesn't cost you anything more to do it. It does help out our show sponsor. And it earns you credit that you can use to get free stuff or get discounts on stuff on their already discounted prices. So what happens is at the end, when you make your purchases, you get to apply that credit towards your purchase. And it really adds up quickly. I'm sure you're finding the same thing, Jim.
Oh, yeah.
So that's DCBService.com. Over at their sister site, InStockTrades.com, they are constantly running deals of the week. Like they've got Nightwing Trade Paperback Volume 1, 50% off, only $9.99. This is Bloodhaven. This is back in the classic Scott McDaniel era. Then they've got things like JSA Hardcover Omnibus Volume 2. That's 50% off at $74.99. The hardcover we are talking about in this episode, if you missed it, Teen Titans Earth 1 hardcover, Volume 1, 50% off, only $11.49. Jump at those deals because they only run for the week and then they switch new deals out. But they've always got amazingly low prices, $35, $45, 50% off, and more at times at InStockTrades.com. And remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. And please consider supporting our sponsor. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
When there's trouble, you know who to call. Teen Titans. From their tower, they can't see it all. Teen Titans. Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the Teen Titans Earth 1 hardcover. So if you haven't read the book, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
I love that you sang the song but almost forgot what book we were talking about. Which was great. I didn't expect the song. That was really funny. Let's talk some comics.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
Our first chat this episode is going to be about Teen Titans Earth 1. Written by Jeff Lemire, pencils by Terry Dodson, inks by Rachel Dodson with Cam Smith, colors by Brad Anderson with Terry Dodson, lettered by Jared K. Fletcher. The editors are Matt Idelson and Chris Conroy, And any name butchery there, I deeply apologize for. This was a really interesting book for me because I didn't know what to expect. You know, we've had Superman Earth 1, we've had Batman Earth 1, and they've been new takes on those characters, but it's still stuck pretty traditional. This has all the right players. We've got Cyborg, we've got Beast Boy, we've got Terra, we've got Starfire, when we've got, of course, Raven, and Jericho. I shouldn't forget Jericho. Those players are all there, but this was really a new imagining of those characters. They stuck to the core of who they are, but they embraced the idea this is an alternate universe. So there's going to be a different origin. The characters are linked due to the different origins. It really worked for me because, first of all, it was a larger graphic novel, which had a lot of depth and pages to get me to know what was going on in this story. It also worked for me because it was set on a different Earth. If this had been done in the New 52, for example, when they were relaunching and they did this story, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. I loved it here because of the fact that they were embracing Elseworlds. That part works for me on a deep level. Really like the characters, want to see more. Where are you at?
Oh, I'm in agreement with you. I was doing a lot of head nodding as you were talking. And for me, you know, especially the thing where you said about if this had been the New 52 version, I wouldn't have been as, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. But the fact that this is Earth 1, we have a separate universe, we have a separate Earth. And the other thing for me is you look at the other Earth 1 titles, this team fits in that universe. I think that for me was more important than, you know, exactly how does it compare and contrast to our current universe that we're used to. You know, this team, it feels like they would fit in that world that we've had painted so far with Superman and Batman. So I'm very excited, and I was really, really enjoyed this series just because it had a great beginning, middle, and end to it. But then it's set up for Volume 2. And I'm very excited, looking forward to Volume 2.
You touched on something I didn't really think about until now. The idea that these characters fit into the Earth 1 universe. They don't feel like they're awkward. They feel like they're a part of the same world of the reimagined Superman and Batman. I think that's pretty pivotal. I want to see more of these books. Not just this title. I want to see more Earth 1 books done. I'm glad they're judicious with it. Let's take our time. Let's really look at well-pitched concepts that fit the Earth 1 and flesh out this universe. I like that they're exclusively released as these prestige format graphic novels. I've got mine on the Comixology app. I really like it that way. I like the depth of them. This would not have worked in 22-page segments. If the first 22 pages were the first issue, I would be in a very different place about this because I was still tentatively getting to know the characters. That was by design, though. The writer and the creative team knew that they had all of these pages to tell this story with, so you can expand things out a bit and really let people get to know not just the main characters, but the supporting cast. There is a strong supporting cast that really drive a lot of the concepts here. And each one of the supporting cast members are diverse. So you get to know a little bit more about these characters' upbringing, which is really important with these teens because each one is connecting because they've had unusual upbringings. But in spite of that, some of them have had very strong home lives, whereas others have not, and not had the support because of the background of their family members. And to get to know them in this world and the fact that most of them are players that we know from the DC universe really made this a rich experience for me. Very well done and a great use of an alternate Earth. It's a great example of how you can give people in a main book the characters that they know and love in a way that you would expect them to be set up in the current universe. This, to me, is something I want to see many volumes come out from. And I like that they're not beholden to everything that Wolfman and Perez and everybody else who's touched the Teen Titans has done before. That would have been a huge mistake here. You don't want to, every time you do these reimaginings, retell the same stories. You want to embrace the legacy. Have us get to know these characters and have them feel familiar, because that's an important, critical part of this, because otherwise they're just strangers. And why did you call it Teen Titans then? In this case, there's a reason to call it Teen Titans, but they're also telling new stories. For me, my favorite character was Raven. I thought Raven's background in this was terrific. I felt like she was my latch-on point in this. For some reason, her discovery of what was going on with all the other characters through her history made her the latch-on character. I'm actually finding I like the New 52 version of Raven. I love the Earth 1 version of Raven. That's not to say that I don't like the Teen Titans. I really like the Teen Titans right now. But I'm not quite there with Raven yet in the New 52. This one, right out of the starting gate, I really loved. I love the look. I love the background. Everything about this character. This is a really cool version of Raven.
Yeah, actually, and I gotta just co-sign on that one with Raven being just that one of the great characters out of this book, and she's one that they could take from Earth 1 and put her into the New 52, and I wouldn't have an issue with, just because of a lot of what you said. There's a real coolness to her. I love the fact that she's Navajo, and it's not I dig the Trigon story, and I dig all that stuff. I'm not knocking it, but I do like just that it's the Navajo, the natural magic, and that's where she's getting her powers from. It's not the demon spawn, or at least right now that's how it appears. Mm-hmm. Down the road they could change it around and we could find out that it's demon spawn, or it's still somehow connected to Starfire, or they could do some other twists and turns with it. But right now, face value, it looks like it's more of a natural magic associated with with her family, with her genealogy, with her people, with her, her culture and her pride and all that. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm like, man, I really dig the fact that they went that way with Raven. And again, but here's the thing, there's still a comfort feeling with her. I don't feel like they gave somebody else the name Raven. I still have, a comfort with her, even though she is dramatically different. There's still that presence that, kind of fits her.
Yeah, and I needed, when they introduced her, because the beginning stuff with the alien, where we were starting to see Starfire's backstory, I didn't know that's what was going on there. And I didn't know that's who the characters were. We started to, get names like Markov, Dayton, and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, and Colonel Wilson, so I'm like, okay, we're going to some of the characters that we know and love from the DC universe. But I was not completely associating this with Starfire. I knew that Starfire was in this book from some of the blurbs that I had seen, but I was not at this point sure if this was Starfire's story or if the alien had something to do with the powers of the kids coming later. I didn't know what was going on here, which is fine. Taking it right from that into Raven, where we got like tastes of characters, the parents really of this, and taking it right to Raven was a good move because I needed some familiarity at that point, but I also needed, you're right, that natural magic part I thought was a real hook for me. I like the idea that this is something she's inherited as a family legacy and that it's passed down. And once she gets it, it seems like, the elder who's, really there supporting her doesn't have that power set anymore, but did at some point, is recognizing that this is something that has been now passed on and there's not the connection to it on the level that it was previously. She's become the new quote unquote chosen. And I just like that history. I felt myself wanting more of that. Whether they go further back with that or not is irrelevant. You hook people in when they want to know more. Whether the writers or creative teams, it happens in television shows, it happens in movies. And actually, that's something I do want to shout out here. I really liked that these books feel like a film to me. And I'm talking about the Earth One. When DC does an original graphic novel in general, these larger scale ones, they feel like you would compare like the Man of Steel movie, the upcoming Justice League film, the Batman movie franchise. They feel like very singular contained pieces. You mentioned it great before. Beginning, middle, and ending, really strong. But they left you that hook at the end that lets you know there's gonna be a sequel or there's room for a sequel. The movies do that as well. Whereas our monthly series feel more like television shows to me. And I love shows like Arrow, Flash, Gotham, Constantine, the stuff that we're all digging right now. That's a serialized format. There's an immediacy to what we're getting. The storytelling is told in smaller chunks with the idea that you're going to continue learning things along the way. But those smaller chunks have to have a beginning, middle, and ending of their own, in most cases, in order to keep you hooked in. It's just a different delivery method, and I really like that about this. I found myself wanting more, but found myself incredibly satisfied because of the amount of depth and the strong beginning, middle, and ending that you mentioned.
Oh, God, yeah. And I do love that analogy where this is the movie and the monthlies are your TV show. That's actually a great way to look at things. And one of the things that for me is this great opening sequence. Because you think a lot of times if going with a movie, you'll have a powerful opening sequence, then you'll get some movie credits, and then, the movie will continue on. So this Alien opening where they're doing non-traditional panels, where it's black and shadows and it's black and figures, where it's the figures of these soldiers taking these aliens. And it's the alien language where first you have no idea who it is or what's going on or whatnot. And I got to admit fully, I had no idea this was Starfire. And I was kicking myself, later on realizing, duh, Jim, she's the only alien on the team. Of course, they would have Starfire because I avoided all spoilers. And it wasn't until they had that sequence, about halfway through the book where they're like, I am Starfire, need help. I'm like, oh my God, why did I see that? So this opening was absolutely wonderful, especially how we get this initial couple pages. Then we get into where the people that we know, Markov, Slade Wilson, of course, Colonel Wilson was moving in there. I cheered. I was like, Slade, yes. Because you always got to have Slade Wilson when you're dealing with the Titans, in my opinion. But these were just some great way they did it, where it was a nice flow through the multiple pages. And it was, as I said, the blackened panels. It's not traditional panels. Great layout, great storytelling, as well as wonderful art combinations. This was a really solid team. Volume 2, you got to have the same creative team because this was a team firing on all cylinders. I was absolutely right from the beginning going, man, this looks cool. And, I kind of, especially when I did my art read through, after I went through the first time, you sit there and I stared at these pages for just for just longer than I normally would, just taking in all the background sequences, taking in some wonderful facial expressions throughout the different characters, especially when we learn later on which of these parents, which was these adults are more disturbed by what they did later on. It's great seeing some of these groundworks and these seeds planted right early in the beginning.
You're right about the creative team, too. That's been consistent in Earth 1, where you've had the Superman books have had the same creative team. The Batman book, I'm assuming, I'm hoping they continue that. They're going to have the same creative team because I really enjoyed that. This has got to have the same creative team. The writing and the art, there is a really strong energy there of understanding the story. And that comes from the fact that you've got a different timeline to work on this book. I'm not sure what deadlines look like for something of this caliber, but it's really clear that there's a little bit more of an opportunity to stretch your creative muscles. And, it's funny. I love monthly books. I love the weekly titles right now that we're getting. It's not that I consider this better or worse or whatever. It's different. And it's really apparent that there's a different approach to this, which to me is fresh. And I like that. This is part of what I love about comics. You can just do a different delivery method and give creative teams a different option, and they just give you a different level of storytelling. I'll give a great example from a Kickstarter recently, Molly Danger. Jamal Igle, when he wrote and drew that, he knew that he was going to give himself that kind of page count and that type of delivery method. So the story matched that. These original graphic novels do that same thing. I like that. I just think it's a really interesting method and an interesting way to tell stories. And I loved the artwork in this. You flip through and you start taking a look at what's going on with Raven, but then we jump right away to Tara's story. And these were really important because you saw Raven's got a really balanced home life. The relationship with her family is really strong. That heritage means something to her. She's not flinching at the fact that she's finding out, these are things that are a part of her cultural history because she's got a support piece that she trusts. So there's a different level of discussion there that when you see what's going on with Tara, there is no home life, there. And to the point where mom is emotionally abusive because of the fact that mom, as we find out later, really was thrust into this. It's interesting to see when you've got these parents that are a part of the experiment. Some of them embrace the idea. Some of them start believing that these are their kids and start treating them that way. There's a love there. There's an affection. Even though there's a big lie, there's still that part of them that's like, you know what? I care. And maybe I didn't start out thinking I would, but at some point that shift happened and I started caring about this person. In her case, it's all been about what she's given up. Opportunity lost. There is no love in her life. I've devoted myself to work 24/7. I go to work I do certain things there. I come home. It's more of work. And everybody needs a break. You need that part that, you and I do this as a break. This is very therapeutic for us. The opportunity to be able to, chat comics and just have a good time escaping from, when we do this podcast, we don't have any of the stuff that's going on in our life in mind. These are important things to have a part of what you do. Mom doesn't have that. And we're seeing what kind of a powder keg she is because of it. I really liked the differences between the parents. And their roles.
Yeah, and I agree with you, especially with Tara's mom was an awesome just showing, because, first read through, second read through, third read through, every time I go through this, you see a little bit more, you see a little bit different. That first time through, you're like, oh, okay, this is not a good mom. Later on, you realize, okay, it's, partially because, she did, this was kind of a job to her. But the other thing is, and this was the part that really, it sinks home. And by the end of the issue, we see Tara's mom turning around because of this. It's her realization. Her husband, the person that she, probably truly, deeply loved, was killed because of this project, because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. So now she's got the weight of this kid, that is this experiment. She's got the moral implications of did she do, is it right, is it wrong? Plus on top of that, it got her husband killed. So she's got all this stuff, and you start looking at her differently, and by the end of this issue, and I kind of start feeling bad for her, because I understand where her pain's coming from. And you start feeling even worse for Tara because it's not Tara's fault, and it's, not the mom's. And if the situation, if, life had been a little bit different, things would have been so much better for these two. I wonder if the husband had been able to deal with, if they hadn't had to kill him off, how this home would be different if both parents had been there.
And that's part of it. Like, I found myself wondering which, did the parents meet on the job? Did one of the parents bring the other one in? Which if mom brought dad in or if dad brought mom in, there's a different sort of guilt associated with this. Or if they met, then there's this bitterness of, we met here. If we had just left, we could have had a normal life together. So many twists and turns. And it goes back to what I said earlier. So much happened in this book where there were things I wanted to know about the backstory that they don't ever really have to delve into. If they do, because it fits their story, great. It was the fact that I found myself wanting to know. I actually cared. These characters were people that started to come to life for me. That's where it's success. The second that I start wanting to know more about them and I start imagining what their life may have been like ahead of time, that's what you do with people that you meet. When you I should say, that's what you do with people that you meet that matter.
Yeah. And for me, the mom was always part of this project. Because, we see her at the crash site, and even later on when we deal with Stone, when the two of them are having interactions, she's talking about how it's good to have you back in the lab again. So I read it that the mom was involved, brought the husband into it. And that's especially why, part of her guilt with the husband dying, because if she hadn't brought her husband into it, if she hadn't brought him into this world, he would still be alive.
Let me clarify that. I guess what I mean is, when I say on the job and the project, it's probably bigger than that. I guess what I look at it as, did they know each other in this career? Is that where they met? Not necessarily even on this project. And maybe they were both on the project at the beginning. We don't know. That's the part that I find that's really interesting is, what was that history? And you're right. Maybe it was the mom. The mom was there all along, saw some potential in the dad. Maybe there was an affection there right from the get-go and brought him in thinking, oh, this will be so cool. We'll work together. There's romanticism to that. We have like interests and things like that. And then he's gone. Or, maybe it wasn't as romantic at that, but they were two partners working through this together with her. And with him gone, now she's stuck with all of the responsibility and duties of taking care of Tara. It could be that route. It could be that route too. It's not that one is right or wrong. It's, I would love to see what that is. And I'm honestly just thinking that through right now. I'm like, we're putting this real romantic spin on her relationship. We don't honestly know that that's 100% true. She could very well be bitter because I had to take care of this all on my own now because of this. That selfish side of it could be there too, because it's clear that she has that nature.
Exactly. And how great is it that we have these off-page thinking and we have this type of, we're looking at it. That for me is always a sign of a really well-crafted character. If I'm able to start looking off-page this deep and I'm able to start thinking, well, what about this? What about that? And throwing out these different ideas on a character who, as far as I was able to tell, never appeared. Her husband, Tara's quote unquote father, never appeared in any of the pages that I saw. So, how neat is it we're throwing out all these different theories on this guy, somebody we don't even really know his name. Because I don't think they even said his name. They just said, you're her father. And, it was just referred to as the father. So, for all we know, maybe there never was a father. Maybe they told Tara, hey, your father left, and she never even met the guy. We don't know any of this stuff. And I think that's kind of neat that, for all we know, we don't know where any of this is building from. So it's like, again, I'm excited that, thinking off page and just going forward with what's going to happen volume 2.
Yeah, that's, what, I think the father really existed. I like the fact that they weren't on, that he wasn't on the page. Like, they didn't do the traditional, you have to go back and tell us everything that happened in the past.
Right.
They didn't do that. They didn't need to. That was fantastic. I thought that was really kind of a cool thing to leave it in our heads. Realize that people are going to just care about this on their own. Garfield, I really liked him right from the start. I loved the fact that this was this kid who was clear, he's a little nerdy. I liked that the dads, both of them, seemed to really care about him. It was clear that I wasn't sure, if both of them were in on the secret or not, or to what level they were in on the secret. I liked that was a little vague. Like, it would have been no surprise to me both dads knowing everything. That makes sense with the story that was told there. But if, the one partner knew more than the other, cool. What I liked about it is both of them clearly cared about this kid, and his upbringing shows that. But he's this poor, gawky, nerdy kid who's really just a nice boy. He's, because of his intelligence, and obviously because of the experiments and all that, he has this opportunity to be, quote-unquote, accelerated, and he's brought into the world. All the players are being put into place to be in a better situation for the experiment. And I really liked how that played out. I liked that he was trying to fit in. Over time, you got to see that deep down at his core, he could have made certain things all about him, and instead he was looking out for the others along the way. There was something really likable about him. He felt like what I really like about Beast Boy, but at the same time, I think they've done some interesting character growth with this Beast Boy in a direction that you couldn't do it with our Beast Boy. Not because there's anything wrong with that character, it's just this world's different, and this Beast Boy will be different accordingly because of it. And I liked how the upbringing influenced this kid.
Yeah, this is another one of those characters that they could pull into our universe and I'd be okay with.
Sure.
Because I like the fact that he's a couple years younger than everybody else. Again, it adds to the humor and the immaturity that is Beast Boy, and just that little brother type of style and attitude that you get from him. But it's still not, he's not just some little kid, tag along. He's, very intelligent, and he's a good person. At his core being, he's a good guy. He is a hero. He's not good. He's not a vigilante. He's the true hero, and I love that about him. I love that, that protecting, the innocence type of quality that he has, and that's something, you're gonna need out of Beast Boy, because he's the guy who, always has your back. He's your buddy. He's your pal. Yeah, he cracks jokes. Yeah, he can be a little bit goofy, but when the chips are down, he's gonna be there for you. He's not gonna turn tail and run. He's gonna, stick it out, and I love seeing just that level of, maturity in these pages. By the beginning of this issue, we had one Garfield. By the end of the issue, we had a more mature Garfield, but it was because he was combat hardened. But he never lost Beast Boy. He never lost that kid in him. But he is looking at life a little bit differently, and he's somebody that I could see turning into a leader of the Teen Titans, someone I could see taking in other young superheroes under his wing and helping them out. And that's something that you got to have in Beast Boy.
You know what the leader of this team should be, though, right now? Raven.
Yeah.
When we see and get introduced to Vic and Tara's relationship, I really liked that because this is where, throughout the book, one of the things that was consistent, but really it stood out for me here, these are teenagers. And the thing that really worked for me about that was the fact that I remember back when I was that age, you're at that age where you think you've lived a decent amount of life, you know it all, or you know more than you really do. You carry yourself with that. But underlying all that, there is still that lack of confidence. It's sometimes subconscious, very subconscious. You don't really know that it's there, but it plays out in the way you react. You also do really boneheaded things because you don't see big picture. So, like, his relationship with her where, like, he's basically blowing her off. I'm like, you really seem to like this girl. But, like, you got wasted with Danny and, like, just, this is where relationships end, doing stuff like this. You're out with your friend and you didn't call her or do any, it's funny how a simple phone call would have made probably a world of difference here in this sequence. And I'm like, this is one of the fellas you want to pull aside. Hey, dude, you got this girl who's, like, really into you and you're into her. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I loved how that sequence played out, especially in multiple read-throughs where I was really ready to slap him upside the head. Then when Mom comes in and you start seeing that situation, you can see why this kid withdraws, is so aloof and ready to escape and get away from everything because Mom really rules him, puts him down constantly. So this guy just looking for an escape is, like, necessary in his life. I get it.
Yeah. And, it's funny because, first read through, you kind of, I kind of like, when you were first initially introduction, you're like, oh, okay, they're making him a slacker. And then as you start reading, you really just start seeing the way the mom repeatedly attacks him. It's not just about, come on, Victor, you're not living up to your potential. It's you're not living up to your potential plus this, and you're doing this wrong, and you're doing this wrong. And look how wonderful these people are. It's an emotional attack she goes on him. And it's, you're kind of like, man, she's just evil. And you kind of understand why he is rebelling, why he slacks off, why he hangs out with his buddies and gets wasted, why, he's not exactly, the cream of the crop in this school. It fits where his home life coming up, and Tara had her difficult home life. So you see these two reasons they're coming together. And I'm like, these two fit together. It fits that they're both, emotionally scarred, and they both have their issues, and they definitely both have, going to have problems with the relationships because they don't have a solid foundation where to pull from and who the solid parental examples to guide them. It's a really cool seeing just her evil with and how it affects him, and seeing Tara's mom's just her lackluster parental responsibilities and how it affects her. It's a really cool just example of the of what a troubled home life can be about, and what a troubled teen where they can come from.
Totally swerved me in the classroom sequence. We see Gar and, his trying to fit into class and laugh off when, people are joking. But when Mom attacks Victor and you see Joseph Wilson, I was totally swerved by that. I thought he was more of this, just brainy kid who was withdrawn and distanced because, sometimes when you're at that level, you don't relate, and it's hard for you to relate to others. I was so swerved by that. I didn't see coming. This is one of those examples where he is a character that reads very differently the second time through. You see all the warning signs the second time through. And I thought that was really great writing and art direction. When the first time through, you think of him one way. And I don't know if you had this experience with him, but that was my experience with him. Is I thought one way in the first time through. The second time through, I was seeing all the clues that were there in front of me that there's no way I would have caught. I thought that was just really well done. It added to me some really great rereadability of this book.
Oh God, yeah, definitely completes another character that beginning thinking one thing, exactly what you're saying. He's a distant kid, he's aloof, because he's super smart and all that, and knowing he becomes Jericho and all that. And I was like, oh, okay, we got, I was thinking that then we see at the end, like, oh, great. But you know what else I noticed? Mm-hmm. And this was something I noticed later, probably second, third read through. Constantly in the background, You always have birds appearing, and then you think, okay, yeah, they're drawing sky, but you start looking at them. A lot of times they're drawing ravens, and they're drawing birds that have that similar raven style to them.
That's cool.
You know, and in the classroom scene with Joey, over his shoulder, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But periodically, you constantly have these ravens around. And I was like, man, that's kind of a neat thing to put in the background, especially because of Raven's connection that we don't know yet, but we're going to see shortly.
I did not catch that at all, and I love that. It's one of the great things I love about doing the podcast is, we'll throw out things sometimes and bring something to the attention of each other that we didn't catch. And I really love that part of talking through these books and really analyzing what happened on the page, because I did not catch that at all. And it may have been because I was so anticipating seeing the Vic sequence again, where the reality comes in for him that I got a problem on here. This became very horror movie, that sequence for me, because I'm not afraid of a lot, but there are certain things that hit me. I probably have a certain amount of claustrophobia, a certain amount of fear of heights, but I would go into small spaces. I would climb, to high places and stuff to see things. But I have elements of those things. This idea of some alteration to you that could be permanent, and what he goes through where he's almost being suffocated at times by what's going on with him. There's things wrapping around his neck, and you don't know what that means. How far is this going to go, and what does it mean if it goes to my face? It's there becomes certain elements of your body that if it starts going to those areas, you could die very severely depending on how it reacts to you. The idea of losing my eyesight or something like, hearing or, those things that we take for granted, that type of stuff is horrifying to me. So when you see this sequence with him, it just takes on it starts off small, but we see it growing and growing and growing. And the fact that it's almost lifelike, it's like a metallic slime that just won't come off of him that's coming from inside him. You don't know what that means. It really, really is well done. All framed by Starfire reaching out for help. Mm-hmm. And that connection having something to do with this. I just thought it was really great.
Oh, God, yeah. And one of the things that, my fears of, bridges and whatnot are well documented on this show. And I have I've had a lot of, stomach issues and other issues and problems. And I'm mostly a hypochondriac on a lot of stuff. So whenever I start getting a queasy or stomach feeling, I don't think, I ate a bad burrito. I immediately start thinking just massively nasty stuff. Like, it could be this, it could be that. So in my head, I'm going through all the list and theories and, all these fears. The one thing that I've never popped in my head, is that I'm going to lift up my shirt and I'm going to see this metal liquidy goo coming out of me, and I'm going to touch it. It's going to kind of start, sucking in my fingers into my body, and just absolute freak out terror. And I love these sequences because the look of terror on this tough guy exterior, this kind of distant, aloof character that Vic's this personification that he's trying to push off on people. You see the fear. You see this kid who's afraid and who's terrified. And I love these moments, especially because it was a visual element. It was all about the artwork. It was a couple of the alien dialogue and a kind of moments, but it was all about just the visual stuff and lets you just imagine what he's thinking, what kind of stuff is going through. Again, this was a great time where the storytelling just let the artwork do their thing. And I was like, man, this is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was exactly one of the things that I really liked about it. The storytelling and the depth and development was great. I loved seeing Joey in some of these sequences where he was appearing places, and I thought he was just there because he went to school there, and things just happen and you wind up being there. And it was kind of reminding me he's a character in this. We were seeing him spying on everybody in those sequences. I thought that was really great. I loved when Gar was coming out of the bathroom. He had two ways he could handle that. He could have thrown Vic under the bus. He could have just walked away and not said anything. Instead, he tried to cover for the dude. I thought that was really great. And it led into this awesome sequence with Deathstroke, which I loved this version of Deathstroke. It was something that I know you and I are both big fans of the character, but I wasn't sure at first when I was like, in the beginning when I was like, that's Deathstroke? I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it. As the story went on, in this world, because of the fact that he was raising Joey, this isn't our mercenary Deathstroke. This is a very different guy. Not the mercenary on the level that we know him as. He didn't have that life path. He has the skills, but he didn't have the life path. And I really like that.
Oh, God, yeah. I really love this Deathstroke. This is a cool guy because it really fits who Deathstroke is. Our universe, the Deathstroke got, enhancements and all the augmentation and whatnot that happened that makes him Deathstroke, that gives him, increased strength, speed, reflexes, etc. This Deathstroke to me looks like just a regular everyday soldier. Yeah, highly trained, very good at what he does, but he was still just a regular human who left military, went to civilian life, and now is quote unquote retired. And it fits him, and it's a great sequence, and you see this is one of those parents that actually really embraced the fact that he is a dad, and he's dealing with a super smart kid, and he can't completely, they can't connect on all levels. Deathstroke is the football and fishing kind of guy. Joey is the intellectual, I'd rather spend time in a lab with Dr. Stone. And you see that kind of dynamic, just issues where, father and son have problems connecting because their interests are completely different. And I was thinking, man, this is a really cool sequences, especially what we get some of the stuff later on that happens between these two. Like, you really see Deathstroke actually and honestly truly cares about his kid. And he cares about Joey and wants him to do the right thing and be a good person. I love seeing that in him.
Cyborg and Tara, when they have that sequence in the car together, and his situation starts to be revealed to her, but then her powers start to manifest. This is going to be like almost the kiss of death for this couple. You go through traumatic experiences like that together, and you start to wonder if you caused them to each other.
Well, it could be the kiss of death, or it could be the linchpin that pulls them together.
Sure.
And I like the fact that, there is some freak out, but there's none, like, she doesn't see it and immediately run away. Because that's what Vic's worried about when he shows her. He's, just promise you won't freak out. He's worried that he shows her she's going to take off. And she does. It's like, hey, what's this? Or, oh my God. And there is a concern. So there is going to be a strength in the relationship. But when her powers start manifesting, her stuff starts freaking out. They, with the headaches and everything that happens with them, I was like, man, this again, these powers are kicking in. Things are happening. I love that, especially after she takes off, after she leaves, because it wasn't his freakiness that scared her. It was her own. We go out and we see the earth completely around the Jeep is cracked and crumbled. And you're like, whoa. And I cheered. I was like, yes, yeah, this is going to be neat.
I want to see her with Gar. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I was thinking the way I was. I really like him. I just see, I want to see him happy. Yeah. So I think that really I know that really influences where my head's at with that. And I think that's kind of cool. The fact that I really care about that character. Not that I don't like Vic. I really do. This take on Vic is really cool. I'm enjoying this one. But Gar, for me, became my second favorite character in this because there was just something about the kid that was very relatable. I think we've all been there. There's times where you just kind of feel left out. You kind of feel like you're not a part of something. But, like, you're trying to be nice, and, you'll tell jokes and stuff to fit in. I mean, there's something cool about this kid. Seeing him at the dinner table with the two dads and the conversation there was just really terrific. I loved the artwork here because I love that it set this mood of this warm home, from the smokestack to the cat being in the, foreground to seeing, just the background details. And these are things that, like, you get in your monthly comics. Artists work really hard to put this kind of depth in. The fact that you have so many pages of this where we really get to delve into the storytelling method of these artists, I think is great. There's so many of my favorite artists that I'd love to see to have this opportunity because it's just a different way to experience artistic storytelling along with great dialogue. The script of this had been just really interesting to work on from an art standpoint.
Yeah, and I did love the fact that they were showing that the headaches were happening at the same time because Gar's like at the table, hey, did something happen? Oh, nah, I just get a headache all of a sudden. I'm fine, really. And it just, okay, the headaches are hitting Garfield now too. And you see, again, as you said, just this wonderful home life, and you can understand why this kid's so well adjusted. And it's funny because with the cat being present, later, when Gar's powers mature and manifest himself, he's a cat person. Well, the reason he's a cat person is because the cat's the only animal in the house. That's the family pet. And it was something that first time I saw the cat and I noticed the cat, but it never really clicked in my head that that's the way Beast Boy's powers right now are working, where whatever animal's near him, that's the one he has to pull from. That's the animal that he can actually manifest and take the attributes from. He's untrained and undisciplined with his powers, and it's not until later that we see him being able to tweak things around and do different stuff. But this, the initial thing, again, the cat being present, then when his powers kick in, that's why he's the cat person. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. That was all really well done and terrific. Joey's sequence right here, where he's often isolated. What did you see? It's funny how that reads very differently. The first time through when I read that, I'm like, all right, this is again this kid who's quiet, kind of isolated from everybody. I get that. I know people like that. There's been times where I've been like that. You just kind of want to go off on your own and kind of think things through. You don't really fit in. I think, we've all been there to some level at some point in time. Second time through, this reads very differently for me.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering what he was up to.
He knows what's going on. He knows that's the crash site, and that's why he's waiting there. I'm thinking in my head, first read through, I agree with you. I was just thinking, okay, aloof kid off on his own,
right,
and doing his own thing. But then, as you know, that he knows more about the powers. He knows about their origin. He's had training, and his abilities already. So he already knows about the crash site. He already knows all that stuff. So he's gonna, he's seen the signs that it's happening. When Vic came out of the bathroom, Joey was sitting right there. Mm-hmm. Joey knew something had happened to Vic. He knew the power was manifesting. He knew that, he probably got the same, psychic feedback, from Starfire that everybody else did. He knows it's coming. He knows it's happening. So he's like, okay, we're all going to be drawn to this spot. So I'm just going to wait for them to get here because his job is to keep an eye on things, to keep the team in line. He's their plan. He's, Dr. Stone's plan B. So he's going to be in position. And again, second read-through completely changed everything because I'm like, oh my God, that is awesome.
Mom and Vic, again, just totally, read completely different to me the second time through. Because I was really like, wow, she's so absorbed in her work first time through that, she just kind of lashes out at him because she wants him to be her. And that's what I was really thinking the first time through, that she wants him up at what she considers her level. So it's all about her ego. That had nothing to do with it. He was the experiment, and she was becoming impatient. She wanted to see the experiment pay off. She's the one parent, I'm just totally convinced there's absolutely, while I think Tara's mom has resentment, she's completely emotionless when it comes to Victor. Except for the fact that he's a lab rat. And when the lab rat finally produces, now he's interesting. Where for years he was not interesting to her because it wasn't happening. She was waiting for the egg to hatch and got tired of it. So she set the egg aside and went on to play with another toy, like Joseph. Mm-hmm. And Gar, they became the extraordinary. They were already showing signs of being extraordinary. Victor was never showing signs in her mind of being extraordinary, to the point that she probably missed the parts of him that really were always extraordinary, the real person that's there. That stuff's really great. So when, he comes home with this horrifying thing and she's like, finally, I mean, it's like, that's really creepy.
The Mom of the Year award right there, man. Oh, God. And this, again, was a great art sequence and story sequence working together because he's initially, like, Mom, just kind of like, scared. And then he lashes out when she's like, oh, God, I can't believe it. Blah, 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 blah. I'm quite busy. And then he's like, and finally, there's something wrong with me. And his head's down. And they did the lettering a little bit smaller. You can see he's kind of whispering. And he's not completely thinking. And then he finally shows her. And that's when we finally see positive. Like, ooh, cool. The experiment's working now. And I was like, man, that woman is evil. That's awesome. I love having villains like this. Because, again, it fits, this character that they're creating. And it fits, what's going on here. They did a little flip-flop on us where traditional, Cyborg was the dad. Traditional Cyborg was, Vic became the super athlete because his father wasn't showing any attention, because his father was always in the lab. Well, this, this Cyborg, this Victor Stone isn't the super athlete. He's the rebel. He's the person who's off. It's not a dad. It's a mom that's not showing him any affection, any type of love and whatnot. So this is where he's going. And now at the one point in time when he needs her, he's reaching out for, asking for her help. He finds out she doesn't really care about me at all. And like, oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's a really great part of the story when that happens. It's funny. I'm so much more seeing what we were talking earlier where I said, this could be the things that was going on with Vic could be what drives him and Tara apart. I still maintain that, but I totally agree with your statement that it could also bring them close together because of the fact that their parents' relationship with them could be the thing that brings them together or draws them apart as well. Because sometimes you become a support piece because of that common ground. Other times you become a constant reminder of that thing that you want to move on from. So that's either going to help their relationship or hinder it too. I could see them going either way. So your statement earlier of being kind of like this could bring them both together, I think it applies here as well. This could either tear them apart or bring them together. The fact that they both went through and have lived a life of going through this horrid stuff. Because there's going to come a point where they're going to want to move on from it. And either as a couple, they do that together and they strengthen each other through it, or they are holding each other back from that. It'd be interesting to see which way this couple goes.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's going from the Victor moment lashing out with his mom to the Tara and her mom. And again, it's the two troubled teens that are being brought together. And I'm rooting for these two kids to work it out and be together. I'd like to see Beast Boy and Raven together. And, we got Vic and Tara together because I think Tara and Vic can help each other. They can, actually be that strength that could, that strength for each other, especially how this kind of ends where, by the end of the issue, you're not exactly sure about one of the parents and one, you definitely know what happens to her. So, they're going to need a support block. They're going to need somebody who understands pain and the trouble that they've been through and the emotional, just the emotional battles they've been through. And again, I love just the fact that it's the anger and the rage that is bringing out the powers of Tara, because you think back to just the evil Tara that we've had in the Teen Titans, where she basically tries to kill the whole team. It's a double agent, and whatnot. You see that anger and rage are some of the triggers for her on her power. So we could very easily get her turning on the team. We could very easily get, now I don't want this, but we could very easily get this Tara kind of going to the dark side.
And I don't want that either. I really like her. I'm 100% with you on that one. I do not want to see this one turn, just because I think she's a great character. This is really entertaining and interesting with her. So I have zero issue with it. The Beast Boy sequence afterwards where he goes, Steve, I think Tara's in trouble. That sequence right there. And he's going, Gar, what's wrong? That whole bit for me, I found fantastic. Yeah. There was just something really entertaining about it. I find that connection that he has with her. He didn't make that connection with Vic. I don't know that he makes that connection with other members of the team. That's another reason why I'm rooting for some reason. I'm just rooting for him with her. Not that I don't like her and Vic. I would have no issue if they keep her and Vic together. Yet I find him so likable that I just want to see him happy. And I don't want to see her turn, because I agree with everything you said about her. There's something just interesting about her character. And I kind of like the idea that maybe they just aren't beholden to that.
Right.
Give us at the core who the character is. And the anger that you mentioned, that's her. She's had that kind of history. But the fact that she's starting out with this team, maybe this will set this Tara on a different path. And I'd like to see that.
Oh, I agree. And I loved when Beast Boy has his triggering. He's having his seizures and his powers are manifesting. He's speaking the alien tongue. We have, Steve who's sitting there trying to talk, Gar down. Richard jumps on the phone to call Dr. Stone. And while that sequence is going on, we've got Victor and his mom, quote unquote, around the word mom, talking, but you can see on her desk, her phone is ringing. Then next panel, you see she's not picking up. And I love the fact that they did put that in there. So these two things are all happening at the same time. This is, the trigger's there. And then we get that final panel where they're all speaking the alien language. It was a great way to tell that this is occurring at this same time. And you're getting this interconnection between the different characters. I was like, it was something I didn't catch the first time, because I was so focused on Vic and his mom yelling at each other. And he's like, how long do you know? What happened to me? He's like, hey, now calm down. Let me just tell you what's going on. And he's not buying any of it. You're seeing his rage. You're seeing his anger. Then you go to Picard, and he's on the floor, and he's, kind of twitching. And you see the cat right there, which, again, I can't believe I didn't pick up the fact that the cat was nearby. That's why he became a cat person. But then, second, third, three, I see that's where he's calling. Oh, cool. There's some really cool connections between these multiple pages.
I think one of the keys is, at this point in time in the book, we're almost 50 pages in. It's a depth-filled book. I really liked the characters at this point. They're new versions of this character, and these characters. That's really hard to do, where you're kind of putting on and flipping what we know about these characters, while keeping them at the core. Characters that we care about matter. I love that all four of them went through that telepathic connection with Starfire.
Yeah.
And we got to see how that was playing out. I wonder if some of the drawings that Joseph is doing were kind of like the early, his early connections to some of this. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that all goes. But I loved the sequence when it was that one page where she's still connecting with him. We see her eyes, and we see their powers starting to really fully manifest.
Yeah, and you got the Starfire, need help. Right there is when I realized that the alien was Starfire. I fully admit, I'm kicking myself for not noticing it, but it never dawned on me that was Starfire until that moment. I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. And just, this is a great sequence. The metal's flying out of Vic. He's in, pain. Gar is a cat person. And, Jericho's just sitting there doodling, and he's drawing. And is it because, part of me is wondering, is it because his power is jumping into people? Well, he can't jump into anybody, but he's drawing the character. He's drawing the alien face, and he's drawing the eyes, and he's drawing this. I'm like, is this him? Manifestation? Is this him because he's got more discipline than everybody else, and his powers have already manifested. His powers are already there. He doesn't need that trigger. He's already had that trigger, but he is connected to everybody.
Yeah, wasn't there something about that when he was 10 years old? Like, it was a dad who said that he overcame it or something like that when he was 10?
Yeah, he's already had these powers. He's already had this discipline. And it's, kind of, oh my God, you know what I just realized? Mm-hmm. The face he's drawing.
Uh-huh.
He's not drawing the alien. He's drawing Dr. Stone. He's drawing Victor's mom.
Oh, wow.
And I just noticed it right this second. Because I was always thinking he was drawing the alien because he's drawing the open, dark eyes. That's Victor's mom. And we know Starfire really doesn't like the mom. She's Stone is bad. So she's expressing her rage. She's expressing her anger to all of them. And that's what he's manifesting it in the drawing.
Or is Joseph infatuated with her?
Could be that too.
At that age.
It could also be that side as well.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that was more than one thing going on there. Because when you were saying what you're saying, I'm like, I didn't look at it that way, but there's a certain strong validity to that. I can't help but wonder if there isn't more than one thing driving, where his head's at. And maybe some of it comes from the fact that his powers really are psychic in nature, I would guess. Leaping out of your body, going into somebody else's would leave you to be in tune with different things. I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see what was going on there. I really liked that sequence, though, because it just makes you think and wonder. Some things are meant to be a mystery, because this book started off with a great mystery. The alien part in the beginning, I don't mean to poo-poo that. I liked that I didn't know what was going on there. I liked they were introducing some of the character names that we know and jump to Raven, but it really was the start of the mystery that goes through most of this book. And I thought that mystery was really a key. Throughout the book, they litter it with other mysteries. We can start making assumptions about some of those mysteries, but I like that there's certain things that we just don't know that are mysteries. That's real life. And this book really reads like a very real, because we're dancing around with these characters in real time because of the depth of the story.
Yeah, and it's, I think, something that has to be in a Teen Titans book is the reality. Yeah, we're dealing with these these superhuman powers, and it's you're getting this craziness, but there has to always be that real teen feeling to it. There's got to be that real factor. These heroes are going to deal with things a little bit differently than an adult, mature male adult mature, who's had life experiences who gets these powers. These are kids who have all these issues, who are still growing, who are still trying to figure out who they are. They're getting this power, so they're freaking out big time. And I love the fact that their first reaction is to run. Their first reaction is, I got to get out of here. Tara levels a house. Beast Boy goes through a window. Vic's running, and they're all going to this one site. They're all going to the crash point, but their first reaction is, I got to get out of here. I got to go. Because, you think about just, the raging, hormones, the raging, a teenager, just everything firing on all cylinders. I got to go. I got to run. I can't think here. I can't be here. And I love seeing that in these characters.
Yeah. That's, there's a soap opera atmosphere to what goes on in Teen Titans book. I mean, in the sense that these are characters who you don't just see them fighting battles. You don't just see their interactions when they're dealing with the aftermath of combat. You deal with their reactions to life. And that's a very key difference. The Wolfman and Perez Teen Titans were so beloved because there was real relationship and emotional drama, real character depth that was going on there. It was at a time where it was mirroring what was going on over in Claremont's X-Men. And they were doing nothing cookie cutter about either of those books. They were all doing their own thing and doing it so well. But that was the thing that was drawing people in. That type of drama. These felt like real people. You didn't just see, like we saw them in their cafeteria at school. I mean, those are the kind of things that, they add a certain sense of, okay, we're not just seeing them when they're always on. We're seeing the downtimes too. In the X-Men, it was the baseball game, when they would do that at the Xavier's school.
Yeah.
Those were the kinds of things that made you start to feel like this was reality. So seeing this now and feeling very contemporary makes these kids feel all the more interesting to me. The character designs are very strong in this because they do feel like very current characters, but they're immediately identifiable as well as the Teen Titans. There's an interesting balance to that, especially when they're not in costume. That's not a part of this, yet they do feel like these characters for me.
Oh God, yeah. And it's, again, them all showing up at that beach. They're all scared. They're all freaking out. And I love the fact that, Joey throughout all this, he's very calm. And again, first read through, I was like, yeah, that's kind of his character, his personality. I understand it. But of course, later we know it's because he knows what's going on. He knows more than they all know. And I love seeing just, Vic show up and he's got that I'm scared tear. And you can see the tears and you can see this. He's admitting something he's probably never said his entire life. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. And she's concerned because she thinks she may have killed her mom in a giant earthquake that she just caused. And she doesn't know how it happened. So she's freaking out and they're each freaking out. And I love seeing these two again. That's why I'm rooting for these two to be together, because these two, I love seeing them together and just they're bringing out such a positive, in each other, and they're each other's strength.
It's not just you. I saw it all too, you guys. And I love how in the middle of this, Joseph's, kind of just coming in, not saying a word. I saw it all too, you guys. This place, the crash, and apparently I'm a cat now, a green cat. It just made me smile. I love this kid. He's great. Those moments I just really loved. He brings the fun, but it's not too far. He's not slapstick. He's interesting.
And it's a great light, kind of a great levity to this very serious moment, but it doesn't take away from the seriousness. It doesn't take away from the impact of those characters all freaking out and being scared. But again, it's that uncomfortable laugh that sometimes you get. It's that moment where you're able to kind of breathe, and you're just like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And even having that moment, then the next page being a silent, page where they're just all standing on the beach, and you can tell they're trying to reflect and try to figure out what's going on here. What is this? And again, great usage of artwork, great usage of silent pages. I was like, man, I was excited.
Joseph, I noticed he has very little dialogue in the early sequences. And he only speaks when it's to manipulate things. He reads very differently the second time through. He reads as a shy, quiet kid the first time through. The second time through, he is calculating.
You know what else I noticed? Mm-hmm. And this is something I'm just noticing really now. Mm-hmm. We don't have a lot of, I don't think we've had any mental dialogue.
Right.
We're only getting what they're saying out loud and what we're seeing visually. That is cool.
With this many people, you can have them telling those elements of the story through their dialogue, but also the artwork's telling us a lot of things on the page. Here's what you don't want. I don't want to know what's going on inside their head because that's part of the mystery.
Yeah, I dig that, and it's something that I never really put my finger on because I always thought it was I was really appreciating how the words on the page and the story being told and the artwork were working well together. But then I just realized I'm not getting that internal mental dialogue, so I have to really look at the artwork. I really have to focus at what the characters are saying because that's how I know Victor is scared really, and he's putting up this fake front, not because I read it. Not because of thing, but because I see it on his face and just general knowledge and understanding of people, especially teenagers, especially kids who grew up in a household like that. You can see that, and then finally that payout where he admits to terror, he's scared. It adds to that impact that the whole time I'm thinking that, and then I get my payout, I get my yes. I was right all along about the guy. He puts up this exterior, but in reality, he's a scared kid.
Yeah. We go back to New Mexico, and again, some of my favorite sequences when Raven's with her grandfather. And, it's more depth to this idea that there's a history. Let's go into this cave. I used to come here to dream. You referenced this. This is actually our second time recording this because of recording issues, but you referenced a lot of really cool things here about how Raven really is the centerpiece of all of this. And we see the different members of the Teen Titans outlined here, which I thought was really great. The ones that we see right now, but ones that will come in the future.
Later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. I love this page when it opened up because I'm sitting there looking at it, and you see a Tin Man, which I'm assuming is Cyborg. You got the Starfire down at the bottom with Beast Boy right there. You've got the rock, mountain type thing for Terra. And then you got a fish, which I'm assuming is Tempest, which they introduced right at the end of this issue. But then we got a lightning bolt. Got to be Kid Flash. We've got the Horus Eye, which I'm assuming is Jericho.
I'm thinking is that the puppet thing that's over in the other corner? I don't know. I'm with you that it could be him. Like right by the Batman and the sword.
Oh, I was thinking that was a Tin Man. I was thinking that's Cyborg.
Oh, I was wondering if the representation of Cyborg was that diamond next to.
That could be the diamond. Could be. Yeah. See,
I don't know. But wait, let me say this. Looking at what you're describing, I could see that being that way either. I'd have no issue. I'm more speculating than anything else. I really like the fact that we're going to get some more of these characters. I like that they didn't put everybody in.
Yeah.
It would have been too many characters. We wouldn't have gotten to know them with this kind of depth. I also am hoping that the other stories aren't necessarily, none of them hoping, but it would be nice if the other stories aren't necessarily connected with this, even in the sense that they have different origins. But I don't know. I don't know that really matters to me. If they're all, aside from Raven, children of this experiment, cool. I'm very interested. I want to see those characters. That's a great way to build a hidden anticipation for a second volume.
Yeah, I want to know who the bat is. Is it going to be Dick Grayson? And who is the sword? Because, I'm hoping that it's, Rose Wilson, which I think would be kind of neat because she's another character that I've always liked. But where would they pull her from? How would they introduce her? Because we've seen Slade is here. Does he have a daughter that they'd ever mention? I don't know. Who is the sword? Or is the sword Slade itself? The Slade become part of a kind of a father figure to the Titans because Slade, this version of Slade Wilson is a little, he's a nicer, more supportive person. Granted, he does fight them a little bit, but it's not anything he's gung-ho to do. He knows he has to do it. He had a job to do. So could that be something maybe, with Slade? I don't know. And again, mystery of Volume 2, Volume 3 down the line, where this is going to come from. Who are all the pieces going to fill in? I'm very excited. Again, great 2-page spread teaser for me. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome, man.
The sequence with Eleanor and getting together with the secret being revealed now, and Steve getting shot because he was really the one that I wanted to see turn. I wanted to see him kind of go, no, this is wrong. This has got to stop. It was clear that I would have been really disappointed to find out he didn't really love the kid.
Right.
There was something about the two fathers and how they were raising him. I really wanted to believe. I understand they might have gotten there through shady methods, but he seems to have changed them, and I really liked that part.
Yeah, and I felt bad because he was one of the positive parents. He was one of the good guys, and it's, to see him get gunned down like that. And it was funny. I immediately felt bad for Garfield. I'm like, oh man, poor Gar. Because this is a kid who, he knew going into that adopted, but this is his father. This is someone who truly loved him. And I felt bad for the pain I knew Gar was going to feel when he finds out that he's dead, and what's going to happen with Richard. What's going to happen with all that, and all these different things started playing in my head, especially because this is Mento, right? Or in our universe, this guy would have become for Doom Patrol, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, we got another hero who is in our universe is now off the table, but will somebody else take his place? Will Richard take his place? Will somebody else? Maybe he's dead, but maybe he's not completely dead. Maybe, a little bit of Niles Calder, freakiness can bring him back. Who knows? They've definitely laid some really cool groundwork for a potential Doom Patrol in this universe by throwing out different names, by throwing out Rita, by throwing out, Steve, by throwing out, Calder Institute. So they've thrown out the fact that these people who exist in our universes as one thing exist here. So who knows? Maybe we'll get more out of this.
And like you're saying, a little Calder experimentation could lead to there being something else happening here. And I'm with you. I like that. I quite like that that's a possibility here. That's a great thing about having names on the table that we're familiar with and we know and love. It's how are they going to be utilized in this? I like that this universe doesn't feel like it's beholden to what are our traditional good guys have to be good guys here. Although Calder, it's difficult to say what he ever really truly is, because he's always been on the creepy side anyway. But
he's always been that. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? I really don't know. And even after he helps people, you still kind of wonder, what's his reasoning? What did he gain out of this?
Yes, you don't ever really truly trust him, and there's something to that with a character. I think that's what makes him fascinating. There's a reality to it. I like that the kids are debating over who's good and who's bad. The sequence where Cyborg's panicking, I so related to him there. Because I'm like, that's what I would be doing. I thought that was a very natural reaction. And Tara going, hey, how do you know? She's trying to stop him because how do we know that what you're doing isn't what's causing this to you, buddy? Stop it. I really liked how that played out.
Yeah, and even they're trying to play it out, and even Beast Boy's like, "Hey, look, maybe it's just temporary, man. Look at me, I'm almost normal again. Well, still green, admittedly, So he's starting to lose some of his cat-like. And again, I did like this dialogue and this inner banter, especially where Joseph is like, "Hey, I saw the same thing as you guys," and he's trying to put himself with the team, but he's like, "Well, maybe if your parents are wrong, maybe we should start there." Maybe Dr. Stone, and he's trying to lead them to where he knows Dr. Stone would want them to be. And again, didn't completely see this, didn't completely get a negative vibe from him until later on when he does the full turn on him. But second, third read through, you see him. He's trying to direct them back to Dr. Stone. He's trying to direct them back to where his boss is. And I love that.
He looked meek the first time through, and what I'm saying, just shy, quiet, all that kind of stuff. This time around, he looked calculating.
Yeah.
Like he planned all of that. Even when I'm sorry, kids, you aren't going anywhere. When it's Slade being there.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. The second time through, that sequence with Joey reads a lot differently.
Well, and even when the previous scene when they're fighting and Steve gets shot, she tells Slade, "Hey, they're down by the crash site." It's like, "How do you know that?" "Well, I got other pieces in play." Again, it was something like, "Oh, should have seen it right there." She basically said, "Hey, I've got pieces in play," and then we got Joey trying to direct them back to to look into Dr. Stone, look into her, see where maybe we can get some information there, try to direct them. And then Slade shows up, completely takes you out of the picture. I was like, man, that is cool.
Yeah.
I was like, this is, again, was a great playthrough and a great, I loved seeing him in his combat battle armor, mercenary type of Deathstroke style of equipment that's this universe. It's not his, the previous version of him, but it's still Deathstroke. You still kind of see it.
Yeah, yeah. I like that it was this universe's version of him. There's something more friendly about him, yet he has skills, and we see it really quickly. One of the things that I really liked in this sequence is when the kids start putting pieces together, like Tara noticing that Slade was with her mom ahead of time. That kind of stuff was, there's things through their childhood. These are people that certainly wouldn't have 100% been able to stay away from each other if they're part of this experiment. They would have done their best to try and hide, but we're starting to put things together now. Her growth of power there when she's got rocks coming out of the ground, that I really loved seeing manifest. But you also, again, see his skills. He is vaulting over that, doing the flip. This is a guy who's kept in shape. He's doing things, obviously, whatever he's doing career-wise, that would keep him in that position. When I say whatever he's doing career-wise, he's still doing things that we haven't seen on page. And I really liked how that played out.
Oh, yeah, big time. And again, we talk about the retired soldier, the retired warrior, but guess what? He still kept up his skills. You saw he's got that physical presence. You're seeing just this right here. This is experienced, trained combat, fighter. And he takes her out, not a lethal shot. It's not a fatal kill. It's a knockout blow. He's not looking to kill them. And then right after that, Beast Boy, who was almost all regular human except green skin, is once again back to full cat form. But not only cat form, it's more, mountain lion, jungle cat. It's hardcore heavy. It's not the sweet little house cat that he was. He's back to full on, fighting form. And I love seeing that he popped back his, that's the one animal set that he has right now. So he goes right back to it, almost out of instinct, and he goes for the attack, and he's fighting him off. These are some really great sequences with Vic not realizing his own strength, Terror lashing out, Beast Boy lashing out, everybody fighting, and we're seeing throughout all this, we are seeing Slade, Wilf, and Deathstroke. We are seeing the trained assassin.
Do you think Slade's retired?
I say retired, but I think it's more of he's not taking the private contract jobs.
Okay.
He's still the security guy. He's still, on, Star Labs payroll, still on the payroll as security, but he doesn't have a desk job. He doesn't have a 9-to-5 job. Part of his job is to be there to fix problems like this. He's a fix-it man, so he's got to stay in shape. He's got to stay trained, but he's not the contract killer that everybody knows. He's not Deathstroke. He's Slade Wilson, who at one point in time was this mercenary, was this killing machine.
I agree with that. That's how I see it. So it was interesting to see how you viewed it. He's kept in shape. He's ready to go. Again, Beast Boy's reaction, "Don't you touch her." He was reacting towards, he didn't do the same thing when Vic was being attacked. It was when Tara was being attacked that enough was enough. When the whole thing starts to click and we start seeing cyborgs, I guess, does Cyborg have a connection with computers? Is that where we're seeing the manifestation of that? The 1010101010? Well, that's binary code.
Yeah, I'm thinking because his powers they fused him with the alien craft, not the alien DNA.
Ah.
So whatever, I'm thinking Slade's armor is also part of that alien craft. And that's why when he hits the red button, it triggers something in Vic and knocks him down.
Right.
Because it's triggering, basic code within him. So it's, it's funny because in a way he's helping Vic, but in a way he's also hurting him.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. It was very interesting to see how that played out. I wasn't thinking that way. I didn't realize that you're right. That's a manifestation of his connection being part of the craft. I wonder how else that'll play out later. See, it's funny. I love this delivery method with this. It's more of a compliment to it. I would love this book to be monthly.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. But it's funny because I'd love to see it monthly, but I absolutely loved in how they presented this that I wouldn't want them to change the format.
Agreed.
But these characters I want to see again. That's why I say like some of these guys bring them over to our Earth. I wouldn't have a problem with putting them on Teen Titans. Something happens and they get popped over here. I wouldn't have an issue with it just because they are such cool people.
I would love to set up aside like a bi-monthly budget or something like that for this type of delivery. Like different stories in Earth 1.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily every month, but frequent enough that we would see more of this because I'm just greatly intrigued by the whole thing. I think it's a really cool universe. I guess, are you in that place? I mean, would you devote a certain amount of funds to like a bi-monthly delivery of this type of hardcover? It's a lot. Is that too much?
If I keep getting stories like this, no, it's not too much. I would do it.
Okay.
I'd have to relook at budget, and
me too.
I would have to drop some titles to pay for it. But if I'm getting this quality, I would do it because this is the kind of stuff that really gets me going. I'm like, man, this is a cool story. This is a great, and I love the fact that it's a little bit longer, and you get, as I said, beginning, middle, and end in one sit down, in one reading. Boom. And it sets up for next, because they've opened up already multiple threads where they could go with this, where they're talking Doom Patrol. And even at the end of this, we see even more possibilities that they could go with. So they're leaving it left out for the next volume. They're leaving it left out for more stories within this universe, within these Teen Titans, within this team. So, I would pay for, bi-monthly. Heck, I would go monthly even. I would pay for monthly. Now, I don't know if they could put out this quality monthly basis just because this is a lot of pages and it'd be tough to do to them. But I'd be willing to pay for it.
let me clarify that. I don't mean it being Teen Titans every bi-monthly.
Oh, okay.
I meant like you would, or even quarterly, you'd have like Superman, you'd have Batman, you'd have Teen Titans, and then maybe a rotating book or something like that, where it's different characters from Earth 1, as a way to flesh it out. So basically you're dealing with, once a year maybe for each character. But
I'd do that.
Yeah, I mean, because we're not quite at that. I think we're getting another Superman, aren't we, soon? Am I right on that? We got the third volume of Superman, I believe, is coming.
Yeah.
I hope. I want to see it. But I'd like to see them maybe staggered a little bit. When I say staggered, I mean, I would love to be able to count on first quarter we get a character, second quarter we get a character, third quarter we get a character, fourth quarter we get, a team or a character, whatever. That kind of delivery. And interspersed in there, I still want things like, did you get that Black Canary Zatanna hardcover? The Dini one?
Yes.
Did you get a chance to read it?
I don't think so, because I don't remember reading it.
Yeah, so you'd remember it if it was great. I really enjoyed it. I love this delivery method. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, I agreed with what you said before. I would have to do some juggling in order to do that, though. It's not just about finances. That is a part of it, though. We've all got to deal with a financial budget. We talked about on the show before, there's also a time budget. There's so much stuff I want to read, but I like this method that I would like it more frequently, with the same depth and quality. So it doesn't have to be the same characters. I would put different creative teams doing it, because you don't want it watered down. You want it to be what we got here. But I don't know. I'm just really enjoying this way of reading a story. What characters would you like to see the Earth 1 treatment get that we haven't yet?
Well, I think they've announced an Aquaman, right?
I think. It's...
Because I think he'd be Aquaman. Aquaman, Mira.
Yeah.
That universe, the Atlantis universe, I think would be really cool. Wonder Woman, which I'm also pretty sure they said there's going to be an Earth 1 Wonder Woman. I'd like to see her, see what they do with her.
I'd love to see something unusual. Like do like a Starman or something like that, or a Hawkman, or I know I'm pulling some of my favorites, but a Shazam, something that would be. I don't know. Shazam would be, the timing would be good, considering that we've got the new version of Shazam going in the New 52. But I'd love to see it. I'd love to see what they would do with Shazam in Earth 1. I think it'd be great. There's so many other characters.
I'd like to see some of the villain side.
You mean like a book focused on?
Yeah. A Lex Luthor Earth 1 villain book would be pretty cool. I think that'd be a neat one. Penguin, Earth 1 Penguin.
Joker.
Yeah, Joker. Any of the rogues. Have the rogues a little bit different, or the Flash even? Earth 1
I'd
Flash.
love to see Earth 1 Flash. It looks like we potentially could see a Kid Flash.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we get a Kid Flash, does that mean we're going to get, a Flash? And also if we get a Robin or a Nightwing character on the Teen Titans, are we going to get an introduction of him in the Bat books?
Do we have to? I mean, I think it'd be interesting if he was a Titan first, in this world.
Yeah. Initially, my gut says, he would have to be trained by the Bat. But I think about Batwoman, she wasn't. Our current universe Batwoman wasn't trained by the Bat. She had her own storyline, and she adopted the monocle of the Bat. And, we could very easily see Nightwing in the Teen Titans and not have him be part of the Bat universe. And maybe he does get an eventual connection to the Batman. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's always a Titan. You never know. They could do different stuff with this in this universe. They can have fun with it and explore something. What if Nightwing was never trained by the Bat? What if he was always the circus kid who, is pulled into the Titans, and that's, when his parents died. He goes into this, or maybe his parents don't die. Maybe it's maybe it's not the Flying Graysons, maybe it's something else. They could, they've got an open canvas to do this, and we've seen them. They dramatically changed Raven, but we still absolutely love the character because they did a great job. They've tweaked all the other characters and connected them to Starfire in a way that they never did before. We're like, man, this is awesome. So they could take Dick Grayson. They could make him, not trained by the Bat. Make him not a member of the Flying Graysons whose parents are killed in Gotham.
They did it in Earth 2.
Yeah. Yeah, Earth 2, he's not at all.
Yeah. He's not connected at all. He's connected to Barbara.
Yeah.
It's kind of a what if they met under different circumstance kind of thing. I really quite like that. I would love to see a different take on it here. I don't really care which Robin. Do you care which Robin they pick?
No, I don't really care. I think, I would rather see Dick Grayson just because they're going with all the, the classic Teen Titans. So we should have Nightwing, we should have Dick Grayson. But if they were to go with, anyone else, I'd be okay with that as well. Again, in this universe, I'm okay with it because as long as it fits this universe, as long as it fits this groundwork we're laying with this team, I'll be happy with it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. It's very fun to see what they're going to do, and that's where things are really fun. So we head to Star Labs and we start to really see what's going on here, and it's funny how we're quickly seeing how Stone runs everything. Yeah. She's really manipulating people and getting them to go where she wants to. This girl was an infant. They're realizing right now that she's hitting an age where, guess what? This is why she's reaching out. Her situation's manifesting. She's got a power set that's manifesting here. All of the kids are kind of in the same spot as this alien. And I really liked how that played out. I like that Starfire, again, up till this point, has remained a mystery to us. We're discovering her along the way. I feel like I was riding along with the characters more because a lot of our discoveries were happening with them instead of us knowing more than them. There aren't a whole lot of spots in this book where we know more than the characters. And I find that is interesting. If you know what I mean, where there seems to be some foreknowledge that we're getting because we see things happen that characters don't. We seem to be really both sides, the villains, quote unquote, and, the heroes that we're following. we really seem to be riding along on their journeys and don't know a whole lot more till things need to come to fruition.
Yeah, and I think that it's a great way to lay out the story. It's a great way to, as we're going through the pages, we're learning what the characters are learning. We're just as blind as they are to the stuff going on, and we're leaving this question. And in a way, we kind of know stuff that they don't know because we have this, knowledge of these characters, and we have knowledge of the heroes, and we're seeing the offshoot. We're seeing them in the lab. We're seeing that, but we're still in the dark. And these are, again, it's characters trying to figure out who they are, trying to figure out what they're doing. This fight, again, the continued fight between, Slade and Tara. She completely doesn't understand her powers. She can't get the groove going to the point where some of her stuff is hitting Vic inadvertently. And it's the knowledge and unfamiliarity, but Slade's just rolling with the punches because that's what you do. You improvise, adapt, overcome. And he's taking her down piece by piece, even though she's got probably superior firepower, but she doesn't know how to use it. She doesn't know. She doesn't have the discipline. She doesn't have the comfort and understanding with it. And the team doesn't have the comfort with each other. It was a great sequence where you get some cool action, but then you do get that final piece that we always were suspecting, that none of these people were their parents. None of them were the father. And again, you kind of at that ending there, you kind of see the dark Slade coming out a little bit. He's like, and now I have to clean it up. You're like, oh, there's a little bit of darkness there.
I like when she's yelling, just shut up.
Yeah.
There's an emotional piece. In that moment of pure emotion, her powers are manifesting very much mimicking what's going on with her. The fingers coming out of the ground, the hands coming out of the ground, mimicking exactly her pose. It just shows how much, with training, she could fine-tune what she does. I find that great. I love seeing a power set gradually come to light. There was something really cool about that. Raven's costume, I think I mentioned this earlier. I know I mentioned it. You and I have sort of recorded this twice. Her costume was something I really like.
Yeah.
It's a costume that stands out. I'm not a huge fan of the new 52 costume right now of hers. I don't hate it. I think what's happened is, as I've started to like Raven more in the new 52, and I do like the character. I want to clarify that. I'm enjoying the Teen Titans. But there's something about her costume here that I really dig. And I want to see more of this character. As she, connects with her grandfather and we start seeing like a physical manifestation of the Raven form, I just thought that was beautiful when she flew to them and we start seeing her, kind of like in this projection of her really coming through and taking down Slade. That stuff was really fantastic.
This look to her has a hero look to it.
Yes.
Whereas the regular, the current, the new 52 Raven kind of has more of a villain look to her. And there is the darkness, the evil daughter of Trigon, and so when she first came on the scene, there is that darkness to her, so it kind of fit. But this Raven has always been the hero. This Raven has always been there. So when she does that first, the spirit walk, that first reach out of the powers, it was a really cool moment because this, had that feeling of Raven. Only thing that was missing was Azarath, Metreon, Zinthos. This could be that same Raven, but it still keeps the look that she has. It still keeps this Earth One look. Again, a little bit different power set, but it is still Raven. There is that psychic attack that takes out Slade. There is that showing up to save them, fly to them. You get the manifestation of the Raven in the sky. Those were some really cool stuff.
Yeah. That was really interesting. It's funny, Joey's reaction. There's nothing here about Dad, worried about Dad, anything like that. There's zero emotion there.
Yeah. He
walks up, no, he's alive. Whatever she did, it didn't kill him. There's an analysis of it, not an emotional analysis. That was pretty pivotal there.
Again, and we know that he's with Dr. Stone because we've read the end of the story, but at this point in time, they still keep to that aloofness. They still keep to that kid who is very scientific. They still haven't broken down that final wall to make us know that he's one of the quote unquote bad guys here. And I love the fact of how they played that out, because when I was sitting there and I was reading through this, I was like, no, he's still alive. Whatever she did, you kind of see just he doesn't have that emotional connection. He is that a distant, that aloof kind of kid. And we saw earlier with him and his dad dialogue, they don't see eye to eye, so he wouldn't get, Dad, what happened to you? Like Gar had with his dad. We don't see that same type of reaction.
It reads totally different the second time through.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a very different place with him the second time through. It's like every warning sign's there. It's all going off, and I'm like, why didn't I see this? And I like that. I like the difference between the two read-throughs of this. I think it makes the story far more interesting, knowing what I know the second time through.
Yeah. And this, the characters breaking down, even after they quote unquote win this fight, Slade's down, but they're still arguing. They're still trying to figure out, and it's their personal, just they're lashing out at each other. They're scared. They don't know what's going on. And I love the fact that argument between, with Beast Boy saying, they said they're not our parents. What do you care? You knew you were adopted. Just because he's adopted doesn't mean he's not my dad. I loved seeing him lash out and defend that, they do care about us. They do love us. And Tara's got her whole negative issues with her mom. Like, my mom told me she didn't love me. You can see just that anger, and you can see them, it's a fear, anger, nervous, scared. And I love these panels going through, especially once again, we get that moment between Cyborg and Tara, where he's like, I can't do this without you. He needs respect. And you get that again, this really cool, high emotional moments, arguing, fighting amongst themselves, and it ends with that final panel. The sun's just coming up. You got Cyborg holding Tara. Nice silent panel while everyone's looking on, and it's that calm right after the rash. It's calm right after the rage. It's that that human connection. I'm like, man, I love this.
It's funny as we're talking this through. I'm finding what I really liked about I was adopted. And I didn't realize that that's why I'm like connecting with this kid so much, but that is a part of this. Yeah. I really like this kid because of the stuff that, like, the way he feels about his parents is the way I feel. It's really cool stuff. I like when there's characters that you can on a personal level connect with. I probably should have connected with that earlier, that's what I really liked about him. But there's a lot about him where I'm like, I get it. I get this kid. I don't know why I'm just connecting with that now, but really cool stuff. I want to talk about this sequence when Raven goes back into her body.
Yeah.
I like that wasn't something where, hey, cool, I was outside of my body. That would be disturbing. Yeah. And I like that there's an emotional thing to that, like probably a lot of mixed emotions that are going on there. I thought that was very well written and drawn because you don't see that very often. It's more like this analytical analysis. I was outside my body. I guess I love when Charles Xavier does it in X-Men. I'm a big fan of that. But Xavier's mind and the way he works and his analysis of mutants and just kind of who we know him to be, he wouldn't react the way that she is. I like that she reacted this way. I think it was very fitting for a girl, teenage girl, to react this way versus a Charles Xavier. Yeah. And it was something I just really appreciated, the difference.
Yeah, and the fact that grandfather's there for her the whole time, just waiting. He's like, I'm here now. I've got you. You're here now. I've got you. And just, it makes me wonder, yeah, he had the power before her, but was he able to do this? Was he able to astral project? Was he actually able to leave his body, or is this something she's been able to manifest? Is this something beyond, like, did he have the sight, but not the sight and these powers? Because he's got these scared. He's got the unknown what's going on here. Look on his face. He's got that concerned look as well. So
does it manifest differently with different family members, different generations? Was this something that he maybe heard about from a member, 3 generations past, and maybe his manifested very differently than hers? Who knows? You're right. Everything you're saying is like, there's a lot of what ifs there. That's why I found that I think that story's so intriguing. It's good. It's really good stuff.
Oh God, yeah. Again, it's with just these couple pages and these couple panels with that grandfather. I want to know his backstory. And the fact that he's not a Titan, he's not one of the main characters, but I want to know his backstory because his backstory will give us more on Raven. These are, off-page thinking that I have with these characters have me going, man, this is cool. And even Stone's mom. Even the evil, the evil mom that she is, I want to know her backstory. I want to know more about her, and because as things are going on, she's losing control of her lab. There's somebody above her. She's not the top boss. There's somebody else. And I love the fact that throughout this, you're thinking, okay, she's in charge of it. This is her baby, her project. No, she's got someone above her. And that person is not happy with the lack of containment of Starfire. And they initiate their final protocol, which again, I was like, this is cool that, yeah, she's evil. Yeah, she's the bad guy. But guess what? There's somebody worse. There's somebody else.
Joshua Clay was Tempest in DC Comics. The Joshua Clay who comes in and is taking over that character was Tempest in DC Comics from Showcase 94 and 1977. He was part of the Doom Patrol. A member of he was the member of the second Doom Patrol, and the first DC Comics hero to use the name Tempest.
I did not know that, which, again, this is adding to the possibility of a Doom Patrol versus Teen Titans story in Volume 2.
Sure.
Yeah, because they've laid plenty of groundwork for Doom Patrol being affected with this and being the big boss, with Niles Calder being the big boss behind all of this. They've done plenty of hints and implications of it, but that adds to it as well, and like, man, that's kind of cool.
This project's a failure. We still have the Blackfire project, implying the sister. I can't wait to see where that goes. And I love how Eleanor turns on Rita. Just really seeing, I tolerated her because it was worth manipulating her to get what I could out of her. But now enough's enough.
Yeah.
I really liked that. It was, that's very fitting of a manipulative character. You see your true colors there.
And it's funny because seeing Stone fight for this project, fight to keep Starfire alive. Now, is she fighting to keep Starfire alive, or is she fighting to keep power? Is she fighting to keep her little experiment going? Where is her emotional lies? Because that's part of her lashing out at Rita is because, hey, we got work to do. We got less than an hour, and this place goes, and we lose everything. We got to figure this out, or is it concern? And that's the thing that I still question with with her because she never really had a chance to do a full on turn. Is she going to do a face turn? Is she really a good guy? We see Rita show, yeah, she's a good person. Yeah, she feels bad for what she did, and she's going to help the kids and try to get them point them in the right direction and and do the right thing by them. But Dr. Stone never really had that opportunity.
Yeah. It's interesting to see where this book's going. You know what? I really liked the sequence where we've got Gar going up to that mouse cage, and he turns into a mouse. Hey, check it out! Because he didn't. I don't think he knew what the extent of his powers were, that he could do that kind of stuff. It's interesting how he's kind of liking the belonging, liking the attention that goes with being who he is, and there's something to that. This is this kid that wasn't really a part of a group, was very lonely except for the adults. He loved the relationship that he had with them, the warm caring that he had with them. That's his role models. Those are his examples. He wants that with this group. He wants to be that person with this group. Now, I don't see him as the leader, but I do see, like, when he matures, he'd be a great leader, but not right now. When they come across the incubators, what a creepy thing that is. Yeah. Finding out that they were a part of these incubators and knowing that this was something that, they were hatching, this was a wrong thing between them, and Starfire connecting with them. This psychic connection that's going on between them and Starfire, I think, is really cool because of her background. I like that part of it. I wonder how that's going to manifest itself when they become a team. Are they going to be able to communicate that way, or is it going to make them a little more intuitive about each other? I don't know. Yeah,
I wonder if that's, again, Volume 2, more questions with them as a team? Will they still have this connection? Will there still be, because we've seen with Martian Manhunter stories where when he's on a team, he connects everyone, mentally, so they're moving and they're fighting as one. That'll be, again, a really cool advantage for Titans if they can have that type of common goal, easy communication.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is really interesting to me. In the meantime, there's this whole destruct sequence going on. And these guys don't know it. They're trying to figure out what's going on, release anybody else who's in a situation like them. How would you like to discover that your name is Cyborg and that this was, Terra, is that me? What did they do to us down here? To find out not only that these weren't your parents, but that they were using you as lab rats. The sense of betrayal. Families are tough. We both know that. I mean, there's such good points on it. And sometimes we're the tough people. I've had my share of times where, I've been a little difficult to deal with. But I've had times where members of my family have been difficult to deal with. That's normal. It's part of families. But what connects us together is the good things, which always outweigh. Unless you're really, unlucky. And I feel bad for people when I hear that they have situations where it just doesn't happen. There is no but. When you get those crabby moments, but, there's those moments, the reminders of, great childhood memories, something. There's those things that remind you why you're a family and what's important to the relationship that keep you going. They don't have that to look back to because any of that's in there is a lie. Except for people like Gar, who really just seems to have, I think he'll always have that relationship. I loved the reveal because it was so teasing us that it was going to be Starfire here.
Yeah.
I loved that it was Tempest.
Yeah.
I really liked how that played out.
Yeah, and even just, seeing the shock and awe on their faces. That was a really cool where you get this up close of him asleep, passed out, whatnot. But you even say, oh, my God. And just Gar, where his ears drop down. He's kind of, huh? And Cyborg's got the big eyes going, whoa, what's going on here? And, of course, Joey is very calm. There's very little emotion showing on his face. And every time throughout all of this, Joey's like, hey, guys, over here. Hey, guys, over here. He's slowly leading them through this maze that is this underground lab, kind of as if he knows where he's going, or leading them right to where they want him to be. I love that, second and third read through where the whole time Joey's just slowly leading them through the maze, showing them what they need to see, where he wants them at, and even to the final point where the doors open and the security, who's hanging back? Joey. Let the others fight the bad guys. He's going to hang back because he's part of that team.
Dude, I'm just noticing it now. When she says, stand down, trainer, I have this? Yeah. It's Negative Man from the Doom Patrol. The one wrapped up in the bandages?
Yeah.
That's Trainer. They've got so many members of Doom Patrol littered throughout this.
I did not know that. Nice.
And I literally just caught that now. I read this through multiple times. I don't know why I didn't catch that earlier. Negative Man's in this, too.
Yeah.
I want to go back through and read it again. I bet you we're missing other people.
Yeah, well, and here's I don't like... Robot Man, what's his real name?
Cliff Robot Man, is that Cliff Steele? I'm looking it up now because I'm forgetting his... Cliff Steele, yeah. Cliff, C-L-I-F-F, Steele, S-T-E-E-L-E. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing a Cliff name, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But I really like how this is all gradually playing out. And that might be a character they're saving for the next volume if he didn't appear in this.
Right. Oh, that's cool. Again, neat fight sequences that they're showing. And I love the fact that they try, again, Cyborg's still trying to reach to the mom. And the mom's trying to explain to him, what's going on. But once they kind of learn, hey, we did this to you on purpose, the rage and terror comes out and she starts fighting. So what do the guards do? They strike, and it's escalation. It's violence, boom, boom, boom. And it's that sudden attack. It's the fight or flight mentality, and these kids are in pure fight mode.
Yes, and rightfully so.
Oh, God, yeah. It makes sense, and it's a really cool way it happens, because you get these moments where Vic is just like, Mom, please. And she's explaining to him what's going on. Hey, we grafted human DNA. We grafted the ship. We're just trying to say what is going on, trying to explain to it and make them understand. But guess what? It's going to happen, and it's a natural thing. And even to the point where once Beast Boy sees Steve, he really goes full out, especially the fact that, Dr. Stone didn't help. Or the fact, like, Morans, didn't you think to move that thing?
Yes.
That right there, because it was something that, when I see Steve, I didn't catch the fact that she called him thing. And I was like, oh my God, of course, that's going to send on the rage. And that really just, again, it took it and escalated to another thing where these kids were already high strung. Now you've got the normally calm, the nice Garfield. Well, his father's dead. That is his father who loves him. He is dead. That's it. Game on. We're going to war. And I love seeing him just lash out like that.
He turns from a cute little mouse to a rat.
Yeah.
And I love how that plays out, because the rage looks so much different than if he would have stayed the mouse.
Yeah.
It's not an angry mouse. It's a rat. And there's something to that. I know we're both sharing the same thing there, but I really emotionally loved those sequences because of the fact that his powers, you mentioned it earlier with the cat turning into like a more of a lion. Those were the great things that he wasn't conscious of. They just happened because of emotion. I really liked those choices. They were very well written.
Yeah, and then as the team's taking down the security force, Joseph, it's time. Joey? Not Joey. Jericho. Contact. Bam! I was like, yes! I cheered when that happened because, again, throughout this whole thing, I didn't notice that throughout all these fight sequences, throughout all this age, you just see Joey. He's just hanging in the back. He's not getting involved either way. Why? Because he's the backup plan, because he's with Dr. Stone. I feel stupid for not seeing it the first time through, but again, second, third read-through is something I really enjoyed, was watching him, his position, just his hanging back all the time, leading the team along to where they need to be, and now it's time for him to strike.
Yeah, and again, what is the obsession that he had with her? Yeah. And how is that going to play out as things go forward? I can't wait to see more of this because of those relationships. I love the manifestation of his powers, where you see him gradually jumping into the body.
Yeah.
I think that's just a great visual throughout this. I also like that the characters are aware this is happening to them. I have no control, guys. It's Joey. It's like he's in control. Gar, get away from me. And the fact that Joey can jump from person to person as long as he can, see them and make contact. Yeah. He understands their powers more than they do, and that part is really great.
And when he jumps into Gar, he's actually able to pull out the gorilla.
Right.
Which is something Gar never would have been able to do on his own, because Gar is just doing the natural reaction. Whatever animal is around him, that's the one he's pulling to. He pulled the cat first. He pulled the mouse. Well, Joey understands their powers better. And I love the fact that she's talking about how he's had his chance to, he understands your powers better than you've even begun to glean yet. And he sees the importance of the work. And it was this whole thing where she's just really playing up who Joey is and what he can do. And you see him handle their abilities better than they can because of his time, because of his discipline. I thought it was a really cool usage of Joey. Is he a bad guy? Is he being used by, Dr. Stone? Who is he? What is he as part of this team?
Yeah. And I want to see how that all plays out. That's the part that's interesting. Think about how many pages we got here. At this point, we're almost done with the book. We're getting, to the last, major set of pages that really are kind of paying off the end of the story that you were mentioning earlier. But there's so much here that's been delivered that is ground building. I want to see more. It was funny. I want this to be like an animated feature. I would love to see DC, those original animated features they do. I'd love to see them adapt this, because this is just tailor-made to be an animated feature. And I think it has to do with the art style that's here. I mean, and here's the thing. I would not want a thing cut. If you've got to do 2 volumes to do it, do it. But this needs to be like a complete. It loses something if it doesn't have all the character development that happened in this on both sides of the fence.
Yeah, and again, it was a really cool moments where Deathstroke comes in for the save. Because Joey, jumps right into Tara. He's using Tara's power. He's basically about to kill Beast Boy. Then out of nowhere, Deathstroke comes in for the save. And it's those kind of cool moments that I talk about with Deathstroke where he could be that sword. He could be part of Teen Titans. He could be that, protector and guardian of the team.
Yeah. What he does with Joey there, like he knocked her out.
Yeah.
So that Joey would have to be booted out.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how he knows how to disable Joey because of that sequence. Also, Vic's idea of, Vic's being able to cover the eyes and keeping Joey from jumping was really awesome.
Which would have worked, except for the mom. And I love that sequence because the mom is the one who, Vic's mom is the one who hits, again, the button on Vic that triggers his reaction. So that's what got him out. So Joey's like, hey, I'm going to jump into Dad. First time he was able to block it. Second time he wasn't ready. And he makes contact and he's in the Dad. And as that knife is slowly going towards the eye, I'm like, okay, here's how, he loses his eye, which I thought was a kind of a cool sequence where, this is the traditional Deathstroke is the one-eyed Deathstroke. So, hey, it should make sense, but not exactly. It's not that part of the story, which, again, those were some cool moments because instead of the eye slit, he pushes Joey out, but slices the throat.
Did he push? Now, I'm actually questioning this, and that you're bringing something interesting up.
Okay.
And this is a question I was going to ask you. How did you read that? Did Joey go out on his own? Did Dad push him out? Is that possible? Because the others wanted Joey out. How did he get... Did he leave Dad willingly? Was he torn? He's pulling the knife into the eye. What was going on with that?
I took it that Deathstroke pushed him out.
Okay.
And because of Slade's discipline, Joey was the first time he tried, we saw it. He was able to block him because he was prepared for it. The second time he wasn't prepared for it. That's how Joey jumped in. Sure. But it is a matter of willpower. He was able to push him out because you can see that moment where he's like, get out, and Joey's like trying to hold on. He's got the kind of thing, and then he pops out. Yeah. And then it was just that natural reflex that sliced the throat. And those were just some really cool moments because I'm thinking we're going to get to lose the eye sequence. No, we get the fact that Jericho's throat's been slit. That, it's that whole thing. But the way he gets around it is Joey, jump in my body. That's how he keeps Jericho alive. So now we've got Jericho inside Slade's body, and where is that going to go? Because they take off and leave the team. So again, these are stories that are what's going to be page 2, what's going to be volume 2, what's the story, how is Jericho and Slade going to continue on here?
Yeah, that's very interesting how that'll happen. I can't wait to see where this goes. And this is funny, we had all this depth at this point, and we still got Starfire to be introduced. So we're through a majority of the book, we really still have only seen her from her eyes and, like baby pictures, for lack of anything else. Our first appearance, Am Starfire, Need Help, was our first chance to really see her. Yeah. And to see this team kind of come together as a group to rescue her. So that way she couldn't die.
Yeah, and it was a cool thing seeing, again, the team work together. Vic's using what he can. He's got the punch and he's doing it, but it's not just enough. But now Garfield's able to pull up the gorilla. He's able to pull that into him, and you see him add to the thing. And it's the teamwork working together to free Starfire. And we get this really great moment just at the last 3 seconds. These heroes save the day and they free Starfire. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a pretty good ending until you see that look on Starfire's face. Stone bad. I'm sorry, stone bad. And just the powers start flaring up. I'm like, oh, this is not going to end well for her.
What happened with the team afterwards with her leaving was something that I really quite liked. Because usually stories end real clean. Everybody's together all chummy and stuff like that. This was another person that they were, like, they thought she was going to be the source of all their answers. She was going to be the glue that brings them together. It didn't happen. This was actually another assumption that they had that just blew up in their face. And the frustration of that, of these things not turning out the way that they expected, just comes to a head. Tara in particular, just each one of them is reacting differently to that disappointment until Rita pops up. And at this point, is this like Rita kind of just coming to a realization that, wow, I devoted my life to this. Look what Eleanor was going to do to me. Is there some part of her that cared on some level for Tara?
I think in the initial phases, the initial stages, she did. Mm-hmm. That's why I always go back to the fact that the husband had to be killed because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. I think that was the process, that was the turning point for her. That's where she started drinking. That's when she started just not caring about it. She stopped being the lab assistant and started being the waitress, at the bar. Where, the job she had, now. So that's the turning point I always put to her. And now this is her saying, yes, I have to face the music. This is what I have to do. Here's, and she's trying to help the kids saying, I have to confront this. You guys go. Gives them Utah, tells them about the Calder facility in Utah, project called Blackfire. And there was the spacecrafts there too, and just giving them as much as she can, and even giving them the helmet to keep Tempest so they don't have to stay in the tank, and they can physically take him out of there. This was kind of Rita's redemption, which again, it leads me to believe she could maybe be around Volume 2. She may be dead. She may still be alive. She may be, again, part of that whole Calder, freakiness that who knows what he's going to do to her, because she was in the Doom Patrol in our universe. Maybe she's going to be Doom Patrol in this universe.
Her redemption really made sense there. And I was glad how that played out because of where her bitterness came from. And you're right. I think there's a part of it that maybe she really did care about her early on. Who knows? The closing sequence with Raven, I thought was stunning. I loved the setting, the mood, the shading of the colors. There was something about that sequence that, it was the perfect epilogue to see at that time. I wasn't shocked to see Starfire at the end. I knew that's where she was going. But it was great to have that closure of, am Starfire, need help? Where is this going to go for now? They left so much open while closing off a great story. I want to see what happens to the kids. I want to see what happens to them. I want to see what happens to Raven. I want to see what happens to Starfire. I really care by the end of this book. That's where it's important. And it's not even a little bit, I'm not tentative. This is where when you've got a story of this depth, by the time, you're well over 100 pages, well over 120 pages, and you're delivering that kind of depth, you really know these characters. At this point, I'm either on board or I'm jumping, I just don't have the time for this. I was glued to this book. Really well done. The very early parts of it felt like a prologue, which is why it would have never worked as a 22-page delivery, and really built to this epilogue that emotionally ties into everything we read since the beginning. I love that Starfire was a background character in this. She was the glue that held it all together, but she was a background character. There's still so much we don't know about her, and I want to see it. Am Starfire need help? What does that mean? Yeah,
she and Raven were really, Raven was the central, but in all honesty, she and Raven were the background characters, because Raven was throughout this. But you look at page count of how much is Raven on page and how much are the other Titans. The other Titans were the main focus of this book, but Raven and Starfire had such a huge part of the book.
Yeah, it was really, I think, just a well done story.
Oh God,
this is a Teen Titans that I need to see more of this group.
Oh, definitely. This is one of those that, when the book first came out, I had it right there and I was going to read it. And then we decided, hey, let's do that for the show. So okay, really jump on it. I sat and I read this in one sitting. This was one where, I started reading, and you think about, if I read a little bit tonight, maybe finish it up tomorrow. There was no stopping for me. I just kept going and going. I was like, man, this is awesome. It pulled me right in and had me going from beginning to end, to the point where I'm thinking off page. Now I'm thinking book 2. I want to know more what's going on here. Again, with, just some of the stuff with the Doom Patrol characters, I'm going to go back through and reread, see if I can figure out maybe who some of the other people are. I still think Richard is going to be somebody. It just you have the character and he knows about the universe. So are they going to use him in book 2? Or is Steve going to somehow come back from the dead? But again, they're seeing it. The issue ends with Beast Boy running off carrying him. Is he going to take him to Richard and say, hey, what's going on here? Because he didn't know what to do. Beast Boy was a little bit lost and confused. What's he going to do with the body? There's so much stuff that there's so more answers that I want. And I love the fact that I got a wonderful, solid story, yes, but it left me room for more. Feed me more.
Yeah, it's a great book, and this is exactly what you do with a prestige format hardcover. You've got to deliver something that feels like an experience, and this felt like an experience. Terrific job. This is why this writer, this art team is just so well loved. It's because they just do great stuff like this, and I was just glad to see this nice blending of a terrific story and great art. I just can't wait for more.
Yeah.
Hope this craft can withstand this powerful force.
How you doing, Jim? Sean? This is Brandon calling on New Orleans again. Calling to talk some comics. Listening to your show right now. Talking about the Deathstroke issue 1. I gotta agree pretty much full hands on you. I love this first issue, and I'm usually not a big fan of first issues. And as far as Deathstroke goes, I don't know too much about the past of the character. I know little bits and pieces with his Teen Titans history and stuff like that, but my general knowledge of Deathstroke is from the old Teen Titans cartoon, where, of course, it's for kids. He couldn't be called Deathstroke. He had to be called Slade. And, of course, Arrow last year, and the Batman games, Batman Arkham Origins. I don't know if you've played that one yet, but fighting Deathstroke is one of the hardest things to do in that game. And there's even, if you know anything about Xbox and PlayStation, they're what they're called achievements trophies for doing these, things in video games that normally, I guess, you wouldn't try and do to challenge yourself. And one of the achievements, which I could not get to save my life, is to beat Deathstroke on the hardest setting without taking a hit. And part of the Deathstroke battle is when you're fighting him, there are instances where he's going to hit you and they flash the button to parry. And you have to hit the button at just the right time. That's on the regular set. On the hard setting, you don't see that button. So you just see the movement he is about to do that you have to parry. And it is almost impossible, because that fight was hard on regular. It is, I would like to say, pretty much impossible to do on hard. But yeah, so anyway, I love the character recently. Like all the appearances that they're giving him in other media has definitely, sparked my interest with him. And I got to tell you, one of the, I think it was on the first or second page, where he's in his little hideout and he's looking on the wall, and there is literally all of the Deathstroke masks. You could see, one of the old 352 masks, the mask that he was wearing in the 52 in the beginning. You had the Arkham Origins kind of style cut and different angular, very smooth. So I love that they recognize that in the comic book. It's kind of like the panel in Batman versus Superman, the Future's End issue, where you got to see, all of Bruce's Batmobiles in the Batcave. That was definitely an awesome shot. So this was kind of, that version. It wasn't Batmobiles, it was Deathstroke's face. But it was very cool. And the issue, very solid issue. And I did not even think about it being something in the past. Kudos to you, Sean, for looking at that. When I get home, first thing I'm doing, rereading the issue to see if that's likely, because I think you might be right. But I was shocked at the end when I got Deathstroke. I was.
Brandon's message cut up. Message. I'm inventing brand new words on this episode. Brandon's. That's 2.5 hours of gabbing. Brandon's message cut off there, but I wanted to. We were able to recover that much of his recording. That was the one from last episode I mentioned that we lost. But after having 3 minutes of the recording, I'm like, wow, he's making some really interesting points. Let's go ahead and record off of this and riff off it. I always like his comments. His love for Deathstroke there and what's been happening with him in recent media, I think, is really true. Deathstroke has become a very interesting character. I've loved him in Arrow because I think he's very true to what we find cool about him. I've loved him, and I'm a big fan of the Batman Arkham series. Origins was great. I loved the fight with Deathstroke in that one. It's actually, I want to shout out right now. I've been mainly a PC gamer the past few years, and I've started shifting over to doing the PlayStation thing again because I'm very into, kind of connecting on a console. And with my job, I've started turning my PC more into work related, which I've done in the past. So it's, for the podcast and work and stuff like that. It's nice to have my gaming kind of, isolated to the game systems now. So I got a PS4. I'm anxious for the new game, Arkham Knight, that's going to be coming out, where it's going to have Batmobile content. We're going to be able to drive the Batmobile around that world.
Oh, cool.
But, Deathstroke, super cool. I don't want to say anything about. Did you read issue 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's do a spoiler warning on issue 2. Can we talk about it a little?
Yeah, sure.
It wasn't the past. I'm very curious as to what's happening there. Did you jump at that book like I did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good sign for that series. I couldn't wait to jump and see what was going on there with that. We're not going to go too crazy into it, but that part was not in the past. That's present. So what's going on with Deathstroke? I don't know. It's a really cool book. I love the art and the story. Tony Daniel's hitting that one out of the park.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, and I'm very, again, you put the correct creative team on there, and you're going to have some cool stuff. And it's funny, my Deathstroke introduction to him was also with the Titans cartoon. Where he was Slade. And I remember you and I talked about it. I was like, that's a pretty cool character. Oh, yeah, that's Deathstroke. Like, oh, okay. And that got me going, okay, who is this guy? And then as, it was the Identity Crisis. I read him in there. I was like, wow, he just took down the Justice League. And then I just started reading more and more into the Titans, and of course, just all the classic, Jericho and just all the different stories. I'm like, this guy is awesome. And I was attacking anything I could get on Deathstroke, and throughout all the different universes, throughout all the different creations, this is a really cool character because you have so much you can go, there's so much you can do with him, where he is a bad guy. He is a killer. He is evil. He's got a code. It's that the duality where you're like, could he maybe be saved? Could he maybe like one of my favorite X-villains was Magneto. And it was because Magneto had good qualities to him. Yeah, he was the villain. Yeah, he was the bad guy. But there were times where he was the good guy. He was the hero. He was the mentor to the X-Men. He was, and you understood where he was coming from, why he didn't trust humanity, why, throughout his life he's had massive death and destruction and, just all the adversity he's had to face and just, genocide. He survived it. And then when he becomes a mutant, he's got genocide again. Hey, history repeats himself. So you can understand it. Same thing goes on with Deathstroke. You kind of understand where he's coming from and who he is, and I'm very excited to where this story is going to go, where this series is going to take him.
Yeah, I am too. That's the part I'm really particularly interested in. So I can't wait to see what's going on with that series. It's funny with I know you just got a new computer. I actually mentioned that on our website that part of our issues we're having this week was on my end, new equipment. I know you've had some new equipment that you've been dealing with. You were having some issues the previous few episodes with your equipment that led to a new computer. So we're really both operating with very new situations here, which has, I think, been a positive because this episode, yes, on my end, at least hearing it sounded very clean, which is always nice. I know when we go to edit this, that'll make it that much easier. You have toyed around from time to time doing some form of gaming console or something like that. Is that something you're still toying with? Or?
Oh, definitely. Because, see, my new system, for those of you who don't know, I've shifted over. I was always a Mac guy. For the longest time, that's all I bought. And then when a couple different games were coming out, I was like, let me go PC so I could game. And when City of Heroes ended, I couldn't really find a game, the PC game, to latch onto. The only game I was playing on my old console was Solitaire. And I just, I wasn't doing anything. I was like, So I started toying with the idea of going to a console system and not game. And so then now that I've shifted definitely over to a Mac, I'm like, you know what? I'm looking at going, I think console system, and I'm starting to look at, I've got a nice TV downstairs, I can hook the game up to there. I got my computer upstairs. I've got probably, I'm thinking probably a PlayStation downstairs, and it's, I'm now toying with that and thinking about that Christmas for me was I bought myself an iMac. Who knows, maybe first of the year I'll start looking at console systems and do gaming that way.
Yeah. I'm you know what, I've got a PS4. I love it to death. I actually put my gamer's tag for anybody who's interested. It's at Raging Bullets. It's Raging_Bullets. But you can get my gamer tag right from our website under the About Us section. I just updated it recently. I got to go back through and tweak it just to make sure all of our links are correct. Just as far as how for people to reach us. But I like putting that kind of stuff up there so people can connect. So if anybody is a PlayStation gamer, I got a 3 and a 4. You want to chat or talk games or stuff, tag me, put me on there. I'd love to chat with you. And I like that kind of stuff. I'm not a really good online gamer. Just in the sense that, like your Call of Duties and stuff like that, I am the schmuck that people want to shoot. Because I'm just not. I like story-based gaming. I enjoy that. I like the social aspect of it. Like you mentioned City of Heroes. I love MMOs. Like I've got Final Fantasy 14 on the PlayStation 4. I'm really enjoying it. I'm trying to get more into. I joined I guess what would be a guild, and I'm trying to be a better player with that because I'm just not really good at that. The social aspect of gaming. I want to get better at it just because I think it's something that I would enjoy and I'm having fun with. I like playing with people. I like chatting with people online. I'm just not good at what is my role in the team, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to get into that and have some fun with it. He was talking about how he enjoys those Arkham games, and I was thinking about that. Be curious to see if there's a multiplayer component to the new Batman Arkham Knight when it comes out. Have you seen that?
I've seen some clips and some stuff on it, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's like jaw-droppingly cool.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, it's. I think that's going to be the conclusion of the series, but that one looks really dynamic. So I can't wait. We're curious to see what you end up doing, game system-wise. It'd be cool to see.
Hi, this is Jack from Redlands, and Sean, I understand how you came late on the table on Kirby because that happened to me with Steve Ditko. When I was a kid, I was a huge Fantastic Four fan. I still am. My brother was a huge Hulk fan. He still is, and we were huge Batman fans. Well, Kirby did in-between artwork on the Super Friends and modeled the characters. And so I was used to that. And, of course, Kirby was, if you're a Fantastic Four fan, Kirby was the guy, right? as far as art goes. The same thing with the Hulk, Stan wrote it, but Kirby drew it. So anyway, his artwork was so different than Ditko because Ditko has that creepy, gangly style that he used on Amazing Spider-Man. And at the time I was growing up, Spider-Man's artist, I believe, was Rich Buckler or Ross Andrew, and they looked more like Kirby than they did Ditko. And so I had a rough time with those early issues. I love them now, and I love especially the Doctor Strange stuff that he did. But yeah, I had a really rough time, so I totally understand where you're coming from. Anyway, thanks, and I'll talk to you later.
I think one of the reasons why I felt it was so important to acknowledge that it's, when I was a kid, I came in like at the, Jim Aparo, Batman era, that was kind of my latch-on point. So I didn't, have a lot of exposure to Jack Kirby then. So, that kind of era, the Neil Adams, Jim Aparo, then into John Byrne, those were the artists that I was reading. So they have a certain style to them. And it's, comics are one of those things, it's just like television, it's like film. There's certain eras that you can define. And they have a certain style to them that's very definitive. And each era, kind of stands out. So I was exposed to that art style. It's actually very similar, reminiscent of conversations you've had on this show, Jim, where there's certain art styles that, like, your art tastes have grown since we've been doing this podcast. but they were very limited when we started. And I don't mean that as an insult to you. I'm more relating to it because our comic reading experience was very different. My exposure younger was a lot more close to some of the earlier episodes we did of this podcast.
Yeah, and I'm always, fascinated and amazed when listeners calling in and just they'll throw out, when I was a kid, I was reading, and they're saying out the art creators. When I was a kid reading this stuff, I didn't know the name of the creators who did it. Even when I was in college, I didn't know the names of the creators. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I started, doing this show that I really started looking at the names, looking at who the people are and understanding. And it's funny because I've gone back, and now some of the older stuff that I read, I've gone back and I've reread and I've looked like, oh my God, this guy was around. This is the stuff I love. And oh, wow. And it just, there's so many multiple times I'll go back and I'll reread something I read when I was younger, not realizing, holy crud, this was so-and-so. And I want to go back, and it's something that I wish I had more free time when I could just take my time, look at the books I read when I was a kid and see who the different creators were and just kind of, see if they're currently, what they're working on now, if they're still doing DC stuff or maybe the outside, just find these different people that, because there's certain stories that I absolutely loved as a kid. And I'd love to go and find them, reread them, see who those creators are. I'd be curious to see how many of the people that I love nowadays are people I'm like, man, this is a classic, so-and-so, and find out, I was reading them when I was a kid. Yeah,
that's exactly, I think your experience it matches mine to a certain extent. I sometimes find certain things you say baffling, but I forget that our amount of time with comics, not that you weren't exposed to comics, but the way we approached comics and probably what we knew about comics were very different, which is, I think it's been fun doing this podcast with you. So like with Kirby, as an adult now, I'm starting to appreciate him and what he brought, and I'm actually starting to really enjoy the artwork. So I think it's worth noting, and where I get apologetic on is when you finally understand like a person's worth and what they brought to the table, I think it's worth acknowledging, that, wow, look at what he was doing. I never understood the artwork. And I guess that's where, when that clicks and you kind of go, oh, wait a minute, this is what this guy did, and this is what he brought to the table, and look at the depth of what he did, and his line work and how it was so unique. When you finally click with that, and those omnibuses really did it for me. That was the part where I really started to, when you really can kind of spend a long time exploring a certain creator's work, you just see it in a different light. And as a kid, I'd seen his Fantastic Four, some of the early, I think it was Fantastic Four. I don't remember. There were hardcover collections at the library, and it was more of what you were talking about, Jim. I didn't know who the creators were. I was, reading stuff at the library because I found the characters interesting. I saw them in cartoons on TV. I didn't really know. So I wasn't at a stage where I understood even how I felt about the artwork, if I liked it or if I didn't. And when I finally started connecting with artwork, it was more of that defined Neil Adams, Jim Aparo, John Byrne type of that camp, that style that became my preferred art, just because that was where it started to resonate with me. So it's interesting with Kirby now that I'm, as an adult, really appreciating this person that I didn't, as a youth, I didn't really have a lot of exposure. So I didn't get the style. I didn't understand what it does. I appreciated the contribution, but I didn't appreciate it as a fan. Now I appreciate it as a fan. And those omnibuses really did it for me, those Fourth World ones. Have you had that on the experience on the show where there was somebody who maybe you didn't understand or didn't care for at first, and then all of a sudden you became a big fan? Has that happened, like artwork-wise, with you?
Yes, but it's not like I can say, so-and-so.
Right.
I've started, like, there's, especially like the what I call my artsy style, where, when we first started that art style, I didn't really appreciate it and like as much. I like my classic comic, or what I call classic comic with modern twist to it. Those are, the art styles I've always, I was always drawn to. And then as I start seeing these alternate styles, a little bit gritty, a little bit thing, I'm like, I'm like, man, this fits the story. And I'm starting to get the groove of it. Like, right here, the Teen Titans, the book we just did, where I'm gushing over the art, and I absolutely love the art. When we first started the show, I probably wouldn't have been as gushing over the artwork, because I would want a little bit more detail. I would want a little bit more, line work and a little bit more realism to the faces and to the styles, and just like a Jim Lee art style. I don't want to say realistic, because it's not completely realistic. But it has more, a more focus, more, attention, as an extra line work, just a little bit more on the emotional side of it. And, I needed more in it, and not as much, as we got here. But now I'm sitting there and I love this style. I think this is absolutely wonderful, classic, beautiful comic book artwork. And I say artwork because it is art to me. And it's, and I can now appreciate this style, whereas before I had this one window where I'm like, this is what I like. This is the kind of books I want to see. Once we go outside, I'm like, the story is good, but the artwork. Now I can sit there and say, it's not the quote unquote artwork that's my main comfort zone, but I still love it. I still appreciate it, especially when the art style fits that story being told.
Yeah. And he mentions it with Ditko. I mean, he's been there too. I think we all, jump on at different times, and we find points where we start connecting. And I really appreciated the call. I think that was a very interesting conversation point to bring up. That just happens. I think with Kirby, for me, it's been, I jumped on very late to the bandwagon. I'm just glad I'm on the bandwagon, because I actually want to go back and see some of the early Marvel Kirby stuff that I don't want to say I was dismissive of, but I didn't appreciate. I enjoyed the stories. I wasn't gushing over the artwork like I should have been. I'd like to see, now that I have this lens from his DC work, and I understand. I think I understand Kirby more, how I'd feel about that work. I'd like to read more of it now and just kind of see what it's like. I think it'd be kind of fun.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you a part of our show. So please consider doing that. And those are always in our show notes. It's up on our website. We have an About Us section on our website where you can link to our Facebook. We have a Facebook group that we're linked to. Twitter. We have a show Twitter that feeds right from our website. RagingBullets.com is our website. Please consider heading over to the website and checking out news on where the podcast's headed. I try to keep everyone up to date from the website and kind of fish everything out from there. We have Google Plus pages. So wherever you're at, you can find us. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, or during the episode, I should say, I have my PlayStation account that I just put up there. So if any of you are PlayStation gamers and want to add me, please go ahead and add me on there. I love, chatting with people from the show, and certainly please consider that. I'd love to add people from the podcast. We have a Facebook group that is a wonderful community. We share with infinitecomics.com, actually. And it's just a wonderful community of... It's so far beyond our podcast. It started off as a Facebook group for our podcast, and really the community kind of took it and made it their own. And that, to me, is far more interesting than if it was run by us. I love the fact that there's such a wonderful group of people out there that just want to talk about comics and pop culture. There are people doing Google Hangouts. There are people that are announcing when the new books are being listed. They'll talk about television shows, games, anything that's of interest. People will shout out their blogs, podcasts, whatever. It's a wonderful, safe community. It's positive talk, people who are just not afraid to be fans. And it's a community I'm proud to be part of. And I love checking, there's times where I'll go and just browse discussions. I don't really have anything to say other than I'll click the like button just because people are talking about interesting things. And it's great to see people having fun with pop culture. For so long, the internet was one of those places where it's like, people are trolling all over the place. I think there's a shift that's happening. And when you have people of that quality that are in our group, and those people are connected to other groups as well, it's just a great place to start to get into safe, fun fan communities. So if you're somebody listening and you're like, I've just never wanted to go on any of those things because I don't like the snark, the group there is the farthest thing from snark. And that's not us, that's them. It's a testament to the quality of the people that are there. So I just want to shout it out. Even less so now as a part of our podcast and more as patting them on the back for just being awesome. Because that's really kind of cool that we're in that place right now. We are sponsored by dcbservice.com and instocktrades.com. Just as a random shout out for both sites, we've been shouting them out for years, and we were both customers before they became sponsors. Met them at conventions. They're the nicest people in the world. They really take care of us. They take care of a lot of podcasts. So I'm shouting them out from a standpoint of they've become kind of, in my mind, our local. Just because they've been so good to us and helping podcasts and helping the community. So I just really want to shout them out. We have links on our show website. Please click on them. Go visit their site. Check it out. See if it's for you. They have wonderful, amazing discounts. They really put a lot of care into what they do. Over the next, as you listen to this podcast, you will start seeing the new books listed for the upcoming month. And especially with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to save money, not only on the books that you're pre-ordering, but also at the sister site, instocktrades.com, to do some holiday shopping. You can do it at a discount. The great part about a discount is you can get people that you want to maybe share some comics with. A couple of things where before you would have only gotten one, because we're all on a budget. It's nice to know that you can go and shop at a discount and be able to get them some things. And if there's that book or two for yourself that you want to sneak in there, that always works out well too. It's great to have them. But dcbservice.com is a digital partner. Remember to put your digital accounts on there. I can't stress that enough. Why not make yourself some money for the purchases you're already making? It doesn't cost you anything more. And instocktrades.com, I just want to shout out for their discounts, especially the deals of the week. I didn't mention it earlier, the new 52 Futures End trade paperback volume 1, that's 50% off, only $19.99. A lot of times for myself, the instocktrades.com site becomes the spot where I start finding things that I wanted to read, but either my budget wouldn't allow or time wouldn't allow. That tends to be my cutoff point where I've got a pretty good estimate of what I can read in a month, even though I keep building a stockpile, but I'm pretty close. When you build a stockpile of stuff, you start saying, okay, I can't really read that series right now. I can't take on this. But then you start hearing a buzz, and you're like, I want to read it. That's when trades and hardcovers are great, and instocktrades.com is your source for that. So go check them out. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. If you didn't read Teen Titans Earth 1 hardcover, great chance to get it at 50% off, only $11.49. These volumes are gorgeous. I got it digitally this time. I'm considering getting it, though, and to have it on my shelf with the other, because I've got the other ones in hardcover, and I'm like, oh, the collector in me kind of wants them because they look nice. And that 50% off is a very attractive price to me. So that's instocktrades.com. Jim, our next episode, we are going to first kick it off by talking about the most current issue of Teen Titans, because we want to talk about the regular series, which we intended on doing this episode. Besides that, though, we are going to begin a 2-part in-depth look at the Bat universe. We're going to touch on every Bat title, not just the Batman books, but Batwoman, Batgirl, Grayson. It'll be a good chance for us to touch on some of the new books. We also have things that were just released, like what's the one that I'm thinking of? The Supernatural one that just came out.
Gotham by Midnight.
Yes, I read the first issue of that, and I really want to talk about that. Matter of fact, that one I guarantee will be on our next episode, because we're going to want to start. We'll start with that as our first Gotham book, just because it's the new release. So we'll make sure to hit that. We've had second issues of Arkham Manor, so we'll touch on some of these books to see how we feel about them as they're going forward. I think Batgirl will be an interesting one to touch on again, because of our feelings. So we're going to be doing that over a couple episodes. We're also going to be eagerly awaiting the upcoming release of books like Secret Six. After that, we're going to continue when we're talking about some of these other books. We're also going to be talking about the things that are going on in Superman, Green Lantern, the weekly books. There's so much stuff to discuss right now that we have a lot of topics coming your way. Now that Jim and I are kind of technically sound again, it's time for us to get back on track and do what we do best and just enjoy comics with you. So thank you for your patience and joining us this episode. We will see you next week.
Bye.
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.